Huang Yueli heard his frigid words, and a smile curled up on her lips. In his past life, Mu Chengying had never been a merciful man, but in this lifetime, Li Moying seemed to be much gentler this time, as compared to the Long Ranger in his past life. But if one really ruffled his feathers, the consequences would absolutely be extremely miserable. Murong Fei and the others were definitely going to be in deep trouble this time around. She wasn't sure how they were going to die, so it really made her feel a little sympathy for them. Huang Yueli quickly noticed another important point. Wait, the Violet Sun Valley that you mentioned, do you mean that valley which we have been doing the refinement in for the past few days? How do you know the valley's name? And what kind of treasures are there in the valley? Let's hurry and go retrieve it. She had already declared Murong Fei and the others' death sentence, and knew that these few scums weren't able to escape from Li Moying's hand, hence, she totally didn't bother about them, as her attention was shifted aside very quickly. In comparison, she still felt that treasures were a greater attraction for her. Li Moying took a look at her and said, "Remember that stone tablet which we found in the core region? That is the mechanism which Cloudy Qilin clan uses to assess God-grade geniuses, which is also known as Qilin Tablet. The exterior of the valley, which is used to filer Earth-grade and Heaven-grade geniuses, is known as Violet Sun Valley. I've passed through God-grade geniuses' final refinement, hence a lot of information regarding Cloudy Qilin clan automatically merged into my memories. As the reward for passing the stage, I've obtained a huge amount of profound energy. Other than that, Qilin Tablet also had a huge reserve of medicinal pills and profound armaments, and some are God-grade, and all these now belong to me. God-grade profound armament. Aren't those God relics, then? I want to see, quickly bring me there." Huang Yueli grabbed onto his sleeve excitedly. Li Moying shook his head and laughed as he knew that this young lass would act in exactly this way. "All right, let's head over now." But my potential exploded due to the full moon and accidentally pierced through the Qilin tablet, so I'm not sure if the treasures inside are affected or not. Huang Yueli's face turned black. "What? How could you be such a wastrel? Even damaging God relics." Li Moying held on to his arrogantly pampered fiancée gently as they returned back to the position where the Qilin tablet was. Regarding Violet Sun Valley's exterior barrier array, it had also been shattered by Li Moying accidentally when he was advancing, so a lot of Violet Sun Valley's thunder attributed profound energy, other than the portion which Li Moying had already absorbed, had all dispersed out. Without high-density thunder attributed energy, Violet Sun Valley's magical beasts totally disappeared. The two of them didn't meet with any obstruction in their entire journey, and they soon reached the core region. Huang Yueli took a quick look at the ground to see that the Qilin tablet's top part had been blown away, revealing a dark space below. Luckily, the treasure depository was right at the bottom layer level of the Qilin tablet, and had not been affected much, so most of the items inside were still intact. Huang Yueli's eyes shone immediately when she saw the treasures, and she let go of Li Moying's hand immediately as she excitedly rushed into the treasure depository. Wow! Although there are not many things here, but each piece of it are really treasures. I think I read about this bottle of heaven-level smelted God pill in an ancient record some time ago. Practitioners below the 5th stage realm who take one piece of half-god level pills will immediately break through a large realm. Even for 9th stage realm practitioners who take it will be able to have a huge breakthrough in their speed of cultivation. This 9 transformation soul recall pill is said to have the effect of reviving one from the dead. You can also listen on. Good pill, really good pills. Quick, keep it. And what other pill is this nefarious bewitching thoughts pill? I've never heard of this. Anyway, it must be some good stuff, so let's keep it first. Huang Yueli looked left and right as she kept on crying out excitedly as she kept all the medicinal pills into the Sky Phoenix ring. After browsing through the medicinal pills, she turned towards Cloudy Qilin clan's collection of profound armaments. These profound armaments were mostly half-god relics, and each and every piece were extremely practical rare treasures, as its might was extremely strong. Among those were a few pieces of god relics. Seeing these, Huang Yueli was so excited that she almost lost herself as she pounced over to pick up every single piece while taking a careful look. It's too incredible. How is this even casted? The array patterns can actually be engraved in this way. I've tried that several times in my pastime and had never succeeded at it. God Realms Armaments Masters could actually finish this? And this here, there must definitely be a special smelting method. She looked left and right and was totally smitten over it as she even forgot the time. Li Moying stood at the entrance as his gentle gaze followed her wherever she went, with a slight smile beneath his eyes. This young lass, she indeed lost herself whenever she saw high-leveled, profound armaments, exactly the same as in her past life. He raised up his head and looked at the sky. A bright moon had already ascended into the night sky. Apparently, it's already nighttime. But he didn't call out to remind Huang Yueli, merely allowing her to do as she wished as he silently protected her. After a long, long time, Huang Yueli had finally satisfied her first level of curiosity, keeping a large portion of the profound armaments. She picked out a god-leveled long sword and a god-leveled armor as she passed it to Li Moying. These two pieces are much better than what you're using right now. Quickly change into it, especially this long sword. It is refined with the resonance smelting method, which is much better than the amethyst light sword and suits your movements. Furthermore, it's also attached with 3 kinds of god-grade thunder attributed profound skills. Try it and you'll know. Li Moying smiled as he received it. I don't need to try, and I also know whatever my leader said must be correct. Huang Yueli raised her chin complacently. It's good that you know. Li Moying tried to wave the long sword, and it indeed was more compatible with himself. His heart was deeply moved because having such an intelligent fiancée was really too fortunate. But he turned back only to discover Huang Yueli staring at profound armaments again. Li Moying laughed out. Why so fascinated? It's not the first time you've seen a god relic. Don't you already have a god relic, Sky Phoenix ring on you? Hearing this, Huang Yueli went into a pause. Speaking of the Sky Phoenix ring, no wonder I felt sensing that there's something strange about the god relics in Qilin Tablet. These god relics, although the might is extremely powerful, but as compared to the Sky Phoenix ring, the disparity is a little too huge, isn't it? There wasn't only space in the Sky Phoenix ring. It was also able to seal a spiritual spirit body like Wang Kai in it, and also came with Saint Spring and various planning functions. It even could be upgraded according to her own ability, advancing accordingly. In comparison, the god relics in Qilin Tablet appeared a tad too ordinary. Those were merely more powerful in terms of attack and defense, and the attaching profound skills made it more formidable, while some even had its own spirit artifacts. Li Moying's eyes also flashed past a smirk of deep thought. In this case, the grade of your Sky Phoenix ring must be a much higher grade of god relic. Even though all of them are god relics, but it should be split up into different kinds of levels. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's fingers touched her chin as she said, seemingly in thoughts. In this way, my luck isn't that bad at all. Luckily, it wasn't a wasted effort for me to bring it out, even though it almost killed me. Speaking of that, the Sky Phoenix ring was a treasure which she obtained when she cooperated with Mu Chengying together on experience learning for the very first time. They were both in 7th-stage realm then, and it took quite a huge effort to get this treasure into her hands, but in the end, it was just fragments and totally could not be used, so it was extremely disappointing for her. Whoever knew that many years later, Huang Yueli had actually died because of it, whereas this dusty treasure had been restored because of that. Li Moying apparently thought of the past, as a faint smile appeared on his lips. But following that, his expression sunk again. If it wasn't for the Sky Phoenix ring, he and Huang Yueli would have been separated for so many years. To tell the truth, this thing wasn't very auspicious. However, as this treasure had an extremely high-leveled existence among the god relics, perhaps it might be hiding some secret. But these were merely his guesses, as Li Moying didn't voice these out. After Huang Yueli kept away all the treasures in Qilin Tablet, she turned back to say to the man beside her, "Let's go, it's time for us to leave." Celestial light sex people all probably thought you're already dead, and if they see us appearing, just how shocked would they be? I can't wait to go back and take care of those few pieces of trash. Lemoyne shook his head. Wait a minute, there's one more thing. What thing? Huang Yueli blinked as she had a puzzled look on her face. Lemoyne continued. Previously, when we were trapped in Violet Sun Valley, we don't know what happened in the exterior boundary of the cloudy Chilan Mystic region, but now, I should be able to sense everything that's happening in the Mystic region. It seems that someone has stayed behind in the cloudy Chilan Mystic region and had not left. Huang Yueli went into a pause. What? Could it be that there's someone who had met with danger and missed the gathering timing? Should be different from what you're thinking of. Lemoyne saw her puzzled look and didn't make any explanation. Instead, he held her little hand and walked through the dense forest. Then, after making a few turns, they came to the front of a cave. In the cave were several ashen-faced practitioners who looked towards them, each bearing expressions of shock and joy. Eldest senior brother, you're really all right. Heavens, really scare me to death. I knew it. I knew that your ability is so strong, and you definitely would not be harmed by that despicable villain like Li Lingchuan. Luo Jian looked at them both and immediately pounced over as he started crying out of extreme happiness. Mo, Yi, and the rest also started to crowd over. The shadow guards were reserved in their emotions, unlike Luo Jian, who was half a young master, crying as he wished. But it was obvious that all of them were emotionally moved from their abnormal looks. They searched around the cloudy Chilan Mystic region for a very long time and were almost about to give up hope, thinking that perhaps something had really happened to Lemoyne. It was based on their irreconcilable thoughts which made them last till today. But they had not expected that Lemoyne had appeared on his own. This was indeed a pleasant, accidental surprise. Lemoyne was hugged by Luo Jian, and initially he remained expressionless, but after a while, he finally could not tolerate it any further as he frowned and pushed him aside. All right, you're a grown man now, what's there to cry about? You're so old already, and acting like this is really too ugly. Quickly rub away your tears. Luo Jian then retreated slightly as he asked, Eldest senior brother, how on earth did you manage to get out of danger? You can also listen on. We have been searching for you for over a month in the cloudy Chilan Mystic region, and we've tried many ways, but eventually we still aren't able to get around the cliff to climb down it. There's several times we tried to climb down, but before we even reached the depth of a few meters, we were already surrounded by those magical beasts and almost lost our lives. There must be even more magical beasts in the valley below the cliff. Luo Jian recalled the scene where he was attacked and still had lingering fears over it. Lemoyne merely replied calmly, This is a long story. I'll tell you more about it in future. In total, the valley below the cliff is a refinement ground for cloudy Chilan clan's geniuses, so both Lier and I have passed through the refinement and made it out successfully. Refinement grounds? Hearing that, Luo Jian and the shadow guards all let out an interested expression with an obvious intent that they wanted to head in and try as well. Lemoyne swept a glance past them and said, Violet Sun Valley is extremely dangerous, and it's only suitable for Thunder-attributed practitioners to go on experience learning. For those with Thunder-attributed innate talents of 9th grade and below, to enter such a place has almost zero chances of survival. Luo Jian heard that, and his face turned as red as a tomato immediately as the expression on his face collapsed. But very quickly, he turned around and looked at Huang Yueli. But isn't sister-in-law, isn't her attribute under fire? How could she possibly stay in the valley for such a long time? Huang Yueli was all smiles as she looked at him and said, Because, very coincidentally, my Thunder attribute innate talent just happens to be 9th grade. What? When everyone heard that, their mouths were agape as their tongues were tied, as their jaws almost fell onto the ground. After some time, Luo Jian spoke out stammering, See, sis-in-law, you're not joking, right? You're just too abnormal. Huang Yueli's fire-attributed innate talent was something which everyone could tell, and it was at least a 9th grade upper-level innate talent. With such an innate talent, She was already considered as a top-rated, unexcelled genius in the entire Soaring Heavens continent. Plus the fact that she was also a talented armament master, well-versed in array skills that itself was already very scary. In the end, she actually said that she also had a 9th grade talent in thunder-attributed innate talent. How could this possibly be true? Luo Jiyun thought that he himself was an 8th grade metal-attributed talent, and was already one of the famous geniuses in South Sky region, so it was hard for him to imagine just what was it like to be of dual 9th grade talents. Huang Yueli looked at his dazed look and actually wanted to tease him, but recalling that they had an even more important matter to deal with. Hence, she didn't tangle too long on this topic. All right, all of you are injured, so you'd better take these pills first. After that, let's hurry and be on our way. Be on our way? Everyone went into a blank. Huang Yueli's delicate face revealed an icy cold intent. That's right, hurry back to Celestial Light Sect to settle a debt. Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei have such guts to dare to scheme, my man, so they must pay a corresponding price for it. When she said that, all of them started to stand up with their blood boiling. That's right, these few villains are just too shameless. How dare they dare to take action against our master? That Dumba *S really thought that sitting onto young sect master's position meant that he could really be comparable to our master? Hadn't he even taken a piss and took a look at his own reflection in it? A mere celestial light sect. Master can't even be bothered about it. Master is just giving sect master face. Hence tolerated with them for such a long time. Did they think that he's afraid? This time, we absolutely cannot let it rest. Everyone was fired up as righteous indignation filled their chests as they couldn't wait to rush back to Celestial Light Sect immediately, dragging Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei out to whip their corpses 100 times. You can also listen on. After they had finally swore their loyalty, everyone suddenly realized that something was amiss. They all recalled the scene earlier only to realize where the problem was. The person who said those bold and visionary words wasn't Li Moying but Huang Yueli. Everyone was disheveled. What was wrong with that? Shouldn't it have been Li Moying who appeared to teach those people who had schemed on his fiancée a lesson? But why did it turn out to be Huang Yueli who said such words? And even saying such things making the fellow who schemed her man to pay a corresponding price. This feeling was too indisposed. However, Li Moying's lips secretly curled upwards as he stood by the side. His leer was always like this, always protecting him as part of what she should do and never hiding behind him just because her battle power couldn't match up to his. Although he had the ability and determination to protect his beloved woman, but every time he saw Huang Yueli fight back indignantly because of him, his heart would always feel touched. Huang Yueli retrieved pills from the Sky Phoenix ring and distributed them to everyone accordingly. These pills were all 6th level upper grade and above, and it unsurprisingly caused gasps of exclamation among everyone. Huang Yueli generously gave each person a bottle, and finally, she walked to the front of Yuan Ziyu. Not knowing what these people had experienced in the cloudy Qilin mystic region, Yuan Ziyu had long lost that elegant demeanor, gentlemanly look. On the contrary, there were many broken and worn-out holes on his clothes, and some were even stained with blood as his face was filled with patches of green and purple bruises. It looked like he had suffered quite a lot during the learning experience. But Huang Yueli could also sense that the profound energy fluctuations from him had evidently increased by quite a bit. You've advanced? And advanced by a large realm? Huang Yueli queried in shock and joy. When Yuan Ziyu had just followed her into the cloudy Qilin mystic region, his cultivation was only at 4th stage realm, and if it wasn't for her as his mistress, there was no way that he could get a quota into the mystic region. But now he had already become a 5th stage realm practitioner. Based on Yuan Ziyu's innate talent, this cultivation speed was rather astonishing. Yuan Ziyu nodded and said, "That's right. I've encountered some chances in the cloudy Qilin mystic region and ran into a bit of luck, so I grabbed the chance and advanced successfully." Hearing that, he couldn't help but butted in. "Third miss, Brother Yuan had been extremely hard-working and searching for chances, as his entire thoughts were that he absolutely could not let third Miss lose face. When Huang Yueli heard that, joy filled her face as she nodded her head and said, Yuan Ziyu, you've indeed given me a surprise. I not expected that you'd choose to stay on in the mystic region. A complicated emotion flashed past Yuan Ziyu as he shook his head vigorously. Since I've already signed the master-servant contract, I should naturally do what I should do. Actually, I'm not the only one who worked hard. Brother Mo, E, and the others had all obtained breakthroughs in the mystic region, so what I've achieved isn't really very outstanding. These weren't merely humble words. The practitioners who had chosen to stay behind this time, round to search for Li Moying, had all met with various kinds of dangers, and at the same time, they had continuously obtained breakthroughs amid the crisis. Mo, E was the fastest in terms of advancement, and he had already reached the 6th-stage realm peak, just one step short of advancing into the 7th-stage realm. The remaining others had also advanced by a large realm. Huang Yueli nodded her head satisfactorily as she said, Be assured, following me, you will not regret it. You can also listen on. There was a time limit to the master-servant contract that she had with Yuan Ziyu, and furthermore, it was only effective when she was alive. If she died accidentally, then Yuan Ziyu would regain his freedom. Hence, from the angle of the greatest benefit, Yuan Ziyu should have chosen to leave the mystic region himself. However, he chose to take the risk of not being able to leave the dangerous place and to remain right here. This friendship, Huang Yueli would not forget about it. It was her principle to repay kindness rendered upon her and take revenge back on her foes. She took another look deeply at Yuan Ziyu and turned around to walk towards Li Moying as she hooked her arm around his and swung. All right, now we can finally leave. Li Moying allowed the young lady to act like a spoiled child while hanging his arm as his expression seemed a little arrogantly pampered while his cool peach-blossomed eyes grazed past her face, without saying a single word. Huang Yueli felt a little strange as she turned her head to take a look at him. Moying, we can leave now. What's the matter with you? Why are you in a daze? Li Moying's lips curled up slightly as he gave a cold snort. Young Miss Huang is finally all done? I see that you're rather happy talking to other men, so much that you've forgotten that your own fiancé is standing right next to you. Huang Yueli went into a blank, and following that she immediately burst out into laughter. What's the matter with you? Why are you being jealous? These are all your subordinates. I'm merely helping you to beguile them. Otherwise, why would I spend so much effort talking to them? You're a little too petty. Li Moying gave a slight humph as he lowered his voice, seeming as though he was muttering to himself. Really? But there's one here who isn't my subordinate. The look which Yuan Ziyu looked towards Huang Yueli was something which he understood very clearly as a man. That fellow obviously has a crush on Huang Yueli, but he probably knew that he wasn't worthy of her, hence he used the excuse of being a shadow guard to stay beside Huang Yueli. That fellow had stayed in Cloudy Chila Mystic region not because of his loyalty only. Only his Lier was so retarded in this aspect, which was why she had not detected the other party's feelings. What? Huang Yueli didn't hear what he was saying as she raised her head up to question closely with purity in her crystal-clear big eyes. Li Moying gave a sigh as he caressed her delicate face and switched the topic. Nothing, me. Should be going. When they spoke about leaving, Moe and the rest all frowned. Moe said, Master, the agreed date to reactivate the mystic region by both sects had already passed by for more than a month, and I'm assuming that no one had stayed outside to look for us. If we want to leave, then we have to try to open the entrance ourselves, and that requires a huge amount of profound energy to support it. Li Moying opened his mouth calmly and cut off his words. No matter, I have a way. Everyone just crowd around me will do. Under normal circumstances, MOEs would naturally not be wrong. Reactivating the mystic region required 12 9th-stage realm practitioners to work together, and it wasn't something which they were capable of. But for Li Moying, this wasn't the case. As Cloudy Chilan clan's first even god-grade genius to have passed the Chilan tablet refinement successfully, not only had he received all the inheritances in the Chilan tablet, He had also received the authority to control Violet Sun Valley fully and special privilege to enter or leave Cloudy Chelan Mystic Region as he wished. With him around, leaving this place didn't take any effort at all. Indeed, with a change in Lemoyne's thoughts, Cloudy Chelan Mystic Region's sky activated a brand new pathway. Let's go. Lemoyne held Huang Yueli's slender waist as he led her to pass through the path, first while the rest of them followed up one after another. You can also listen on. At the present moment in the Celestial Light sect, the entire sect's entrance was filled with lights as it was bustling with excitement. Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei each wore a set of official court dress as they stood at the front of Celestial Light sect's main entrance, welcoming various guests who came over to visit from many different large sects. Today, to Celestial Light sect, was an extremely important day and was the start of a brand new beginning. Because today was the day where Li Lingchuan would be officially designated as Celestial Light sect's new young sect master, and also the day when he got officially engaged to Murong Fei. This was the day when Li Lingchuan felt flushed with success. He dressed up in his best attire, and he was high-spirited as he stood at the front of the mountain entrance, filled with great aspiration. Almost all those large powerhouses within South Sky region had all received Celestial Light sect's invitation card, inviting them to witness the birth of their new young sect master. Those guests were headed over as spectators were full of praises and congratulations when they saw Li Lingchuan, almost sending him to heaven. Mr. Li, wrong, it's young sect master Li. Congratulations, congratulations. I knew long ago that you have a fortunate life ahead, and your innate talent is the top within South Sky region, so you definitely come out with big achievements in future. Within such a short time, you've already become the young sect master. Isn't that so? Mr. Li is South Sky region's first-class super genius, and what's rarer is that his moral standing, courage, and insight are all first-rated too. I've always felt that it's a waste of talent for young sect master Li to only be a direct disciple. Only the position of young sect master is worthy of you. Indeed, you've finally become Celestial Light sect's young sect master eventually. Sect Master Murong has great insight to be able to tell that young Sect Master Li's ability and character are excellent, and he's able to take on huge responsibility. Not only had he passed on the position of young Sect Master to you, he's also married his eldest daughter to you as well. Eldest Miss Murong is the #1 beauty among our South Sky region, the #1 talented young lady. Even she fancies young Sect Master Li. It's obvious what kind of potential and person young Sect Master is. Congratulations to young Sect Master Li for the double happiness. That's right, double happiness. Congratulations. Peals of praise kept on coming, making Li Lingchuan extremely comfortable as he was elated, especially when he recalled the first time when Lemoyne had been designated to be the young sect master. Although the guests were much more than now, but most of them had a gloomy look as they came and went by quickly, totally not flattering Lemoyne at all. Li Lingchuan naturally assumed that under this comparison, of course, Li Lingchuan's character had gained the approval of everyone. His potential apparently wasn't any worse off than Lemoyne. Of course, there was no way that he would find out that the reason as to why those guests didn't flatter Lemoyne, one of it was because Lemoyne's character was just too cold and no one dared to be rash in front of him. Another reason was because Lemoyne's innate talent was just too abnormal. The minute many presidents from those powerhouses thought of the fact that for the next several hundreds or even thousands of years, they would be suppressed by that demonic gray genius over their heads, and that their own sex would never be able to be known to the world, how would their feelings possibly get lifted up? Some of them couldn't even be bothered to come out with polite words. In comparison, Li Lingchuan wasn't much of a threat in various powerhouses' eyes, to the extent that, in front of a gem, like Lemoyne only made him especially useless, no different from a dumbass. But unfortunately, this dumbass was still immensely pleased with himself, as everyone found him laughable, so they wouldn't be stingy with a few words of flattering. Since nice words don't require any money, so They could ridicule him all they wanted behind his back, and Li Lingchuan would never find out. You can also listen on. Right after the bunch of sect masters and elders from other large sects had exchanged polite greetings with Li Lingchuan, the minute they walked into the door, their faces indeed took a change immediately. They took a quick glance around and couldn't help but gathered together to ridicule him. Look at the conceited and arrogant look from that vile character. All of us are the elders from large sects, but he doesn't even bother to look at us in the eye. How could he do that? Did he really think that having the position of Celestial Light Sect's young sect master meant that he was really Li Moying? Isn't that so? Li Lingchuan didn't think that he is Li Moying. He just feels that he's much more incredible than Li Moying. I really wonder where his confidence came from. But this is a great thing. Originally, I thought that the sects in South Sky region could only continue breathing under Celestial Light Sect, but whoever knew that Li Moying actually got into an accident while on an experience learning trip in the Mystic region. Now that this dumbass Li Lingchuan is taking over the position, it's really a great help from the heavens. Haha, you're right. Only Li Moying has such excellent innate talent. Although he's not my sect disciple, but his demise still made some people sigh. If I had a say in it, it's you who's too naive. I heard the rumors around the world that Li Moying's death has something to do with Li Lingchuan. It was said that Li Lingchuan had plotted against his own senior brother, causing him to die in the Mystic region. What? There's actually such a thing? How could that be possible? Where did you hear that from? There's quite a number of people who heard of this. It's rumored that this time it was Celestial Light Sect and West Sky region's Green Clouds sect entering the Mystic region for experience learning together, and Green Clouds sect's disciples went around spreading these. Even West Sky region's large sects all know about this rumor. Heavens! If it's really true, that would be too scary. Even plotting against his own senior brother. That's an intolerable behavior. Is Murong getting foolish as he grows old? How could he allow such a thing that is worse than a beast to take on the position of young sect master and even marry his own eldest daughter to him? So that's why they say Celestial Light Sect is finished. It really matches the saying that fortune rests in the east of the river for 30 years, but turns to the west after 30 years pass. Similar rumors were heard around every corner of Celestial Light Sect. The guests from other sects who were spreading the rumors mostly avoided Li Lingchuan himself, but in front of other Celestial Light Sect's ordinary disciples, they had nothing to fear, because Li Lingchuan wasn't Li Moying. When Li Moying was young sect master, he had absolute prestige in Celestial Light Sect. If anyone were to talk bad about him in the sect, it would immediately cause an uproar by the masses of the disciples, invoking a group fight. But now that there were so many guests from other sects who gossiped about Li Lingchuan's unpleasant talk unbridledly, yet no one was upset over this. On the contrary, Celestial Light Sect's disciples secretly gazed towards Li Lingchuan's direction as a sliver of hatred flashed past their eyes. Regarding the rumor of Li Lingchuan causing Li Moying's death, they naturally had heard of it, because there were quite a number of direct disciples present, and they had heard the truth when Luo Jiyun said it out. Although they didn't dare to offend Li Lingchuan, and they didn't debate the truth with him in front of the Mystic Region's entrance, but they had spread the rumor under the tables by quite a bit, although none of them were the witness. But compared to Luo Jiyun and Li Lingchuan's usual character, everyone felt that Luo Jiyun's words were apparently more convincing. Moreover speaking, Li Moying's potential was clear for all to see. Just how powerful he was something which Celestial Light Sect's disciples had all experienced. Even his fiancée, Bairuoli, was also a first-class talented lady. 1. It means that life is full of ups and downs you can also listen on. The two of them joined hands and easily allowed Lung Yifeng to kill him so easily. Wasn't that a comedy? It's just an unbelievable story. Li Lingchuan, on the other hand, because he was a disciple of their sect, so there were many ways which he could come out with to hoodwink Li Moying, thereby successfully plotting against him. Li Lingchuan's character was originally arrogant and cold-blooded, with a look of hatred to exact revenge. Hence, he wasn't exactly able to capture the hearts of those in Celestial Light Sect. Now, with such a rumor, there was a 99% of the masses of disciples going against him. But no one could do anything about him at all. Right after Li Moying's death, Muronda knew that the possibility of Celestial Light Sect becoming Soaring Heavens Continent's first-class powerhouse no longer existed. Hence, he had no heart to manage the sect's affairs. Therefore, he passed the authority over to Li Lingchuan. With absolute authority in Li Lingchuan's hands, he started to suppress those people who dared to oppose him. He also had Murong Fei to stand up for him. So, if any disciple dared to say anything bad about him, they would suffer from an insane level of revenge. Sai, today is Young Sect Master's Coronation Day. It really makes me feel that there's nothing left to live for. Are we going to let such a despicable villain reign over our heads forever? Someone shot a furious look towards Li Lingchuan's back as he couldn't help but grumbled angrily. Hush, are you mad? How dare you even say such things? Guests from other sects can comment. Young Sect Master, but we can't. Have you forgotten about what happened to those people like Su Qingwei and the others who had once followed by Roli? What has happened to them now? Don't tell me you want to end up like them? The former had a shock as he recalled something, and his expression turned steely green and immediately shut his mouth, not daring to speak a single word more. A vile character like Li Lingchuan didn't have abilities like Li Moying, and he couldn't even be compared to Li Moying when handling the sect's affairs. But when he exacted revenge, he had many different ways of doing so. Like those people who came from Celestial Light Academy, they were merely Celestial Light Sect's ordinary disciples and didn't dare to discuss about Li Lingchuan's matter. But only because they had once stayed in the same academy as Li Moying and were acquainted to Huang Yueli. Hence they suffered the most severe revenge. Especially for Su Qingwei and the others. They were directly sent to the most dangerous demonic or cave for mining. Demonic or cave had abundant fantasy, a demonic rock, and each piece of it was priceless. But these kinds of rocks itself had its own spiritual nature and would form a special kind of demonic tone in the cave to cause confusion onto those practitioners' soul trace and consciousness who entered the demonic or cave. In the past, those practitioners who entered the demonic or cave to mine had willingly accepted the missions, and most of them were inner or even direct disciples who thought that under the provocation of the demonic tone, it might lead to a better method of cultivation. In order to seek a breakthrough in their bottlenecks, they proactively went ahead with this. But now, Li Lingchuan had coerced Su Qingwei and the others to mine in the demonic or cave from day to night. These people originally had ordinary innate talents, and their cultivation base was the lowest in the entire Celestial Light Sect. They had been shut in the demonic or cave for a long time, hence, quite a number of them had already gone insane. There were often other Celestial Light Sect disciples who passed by the demonic or cave, and hearing those peals of miserable shrieks, it sounded extremely horrifying. For a moment, Li Lingchuan's method of killing the chickens to warn the monkey was effective, and in an instant, it lessened the number of people who went against him. All of Celestial Light Sect's disciples didn't dare to voice out their displeasures and could only watch Li Lingchuan hugging Murong Fei with an extremely conceited and complacent look. They were suffocated by this so much that they were almost going to sustain an internal injury. Everyone's inner hearts were sighing with sorrow. Why had Li Moying been harmed by this kind of despicable and shameless thing? Could it be true that good men could not live for long, whereas scourges reigned for a millennium? Heaven was really unjust. You can also listen on. The process of welcoming guests lasted for an entire morning. At midday, the coronation of young sect master and engagement ceremony was held right in front of the public square in front of Celestial Light Sect's main door, as it was about to start. With the support of Murong Fei, Murongda walked up the stage slowly. The entire public square quietened down. Distinguished guests from various powerhouses in South Sky region and disciples of Celestial Light Sect, it's an honor to have invited all of you here. I believe that everyone knows that today is an extremely important date to us, Celestial Light Sect. From today onwards, our sect will have a successor and my daughter Murong Fei has a man who she can entrust her life to. Murong's gaze brushed past Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei, who were standing beside him, as he opened his mouth to speak ruefully. He had naturally valued Li Moying much more. No matter if it was for young sect master or his son-in-law, it was Li Moying who was much more dependable. But now he had no other choices. Li Lingchuan seemed to have seen through his thoughts as he took a step upwards and said, "Master, please be assured. This disciple will never let down your hopes and valuation, and will lead Celestial Light sect to new heights. I will also let Fei become the most fortunate and glorious lady in the entire South Sky region." Murong Fei's lips immediately surfaced a smile. To receive a confession so openly naturally was a very glamorous matter, especially before this. It had always been her to stick to Li Moying, not to mention being affectionate to openly. He simply just treated her as heir. Now that Li Lingchuan had been so attentive towards her, it had satisfied her vanity, and adding on to the considerations of reality benefits, she immediately casted Li Moying behind her. When Murong heard that, he nodded as a praiseful look appeared in his eyes, and, "Not bad, this master naturally believes in you. But in terms of cultivation, you need to put more effort into it to get closer to your eldest senior brother who had already passed on." When Li Lingchuan heard these words, his expression stiffened a little, and he nodded his head a little while later. "Yes, I will obey Master's teachings." He had thought that he had already successfully brainwashed this old man completely, but he had not imagined that his heart was still longing for Li Moying. He even dared to compare him against Li Moying. Could it be that he was so incomparable to Li Moying, even if that fellow was already dead, but yet he could only live under his shadow? But no matter how much Murong longed for Li Moying was totally useless. Just like those ordinary disciples, there was no meaning in opposing him becoming young sect master, because there was no way a dead person could possibly be revived. There were many practitioners from other sects who heard the conversation on the stage, and they exchanged glances as they started applauding together. But secretly, they started to engage in commentary softly. "What's going on? What do you guys say? Does Sect Master Murong know or not about Li Lingchuan causing Li Moying's death? I think he probably doesn't know much. Li Lingchuan is not an idiot, so he definitely wouldn't let this news emit to his ears. But for Murong to not know about this completely without a single doubt, I don't believe it at all. After all, he had been a sect master for several hundreds of years, so how could he be that silly? Then why did he still? That's easy to understand. If you were in his position, you probably could only do this as well. Li Lingchuan's innate talent. Although compared to Li Moying, he's a complete trash, but among the talents in South Sky region, he is still one of the top few. He has the highest innate talent and ability in the current Celestial Light sect. What else could old man Murong do? Just act as if you don't know a thing. As long as you don't expose him directly, that will do. You can also listen on. TSK. Listen to what you said. I really feel indignant for Li Moying. When he was young sect master, just how much benefit had he obtained for Celestial Light sect? How many tournaments had he won? In the end? Don't say old man Murong don't remember him. Just look at that eldest Miss Murong. In the past, she was so smitten towards Li Moying until even outsiders like us were touched by it. But now he had just died for how long? She can't wait to remarry. Sigh, this kind of woman. No wonder Li Moying doesn't fancy her. While everyone was chipping it, the coronation ceremony had officially begun. Murong stood in the middle of the stage as he recited an entire page of incantation. The rough meaning was to report Celestial Light sect's situation to those ancestors and seniors who had already passed on. After he finished reciting, he beckoned towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan immediately showed a look of joy as he hurriedly took quick steps towards Murong and knelt down. Murong was looking at him intently as he opened his mouth slowly. "Lingchuan, Celestial Light sect's future is now entrusted into your hands, so you must cultivate hard, regulating yourself strictly without any laziness." "Yes, Master, please be assured." Li Lingchuan replied. His heart was beating fast as he had reached the limit of excitement. For the past 10 over years, he had schemed various times, and even doing many despicable things, even colluding with other sex practitioners to murder his own senior brother. All these were just for this moment. His motive was finally going to be accomplished. Murong's voice rang from above his head. This sect master announced that direct disciple Li Lingchuan is now officially Celestial Light Sect's 253rd. Wait, I don't agree. An icy cold voice suddenly rang from the direction of the mountain entrance, interrupting Murong's words. Everyone present was all dazed, as they didn't expect anyone to open their mouths to talk at this moment. Don't think that they were in an intense discussion privately earlier. The minute Murong started off the ceremony officially, everyone immediately shut their mouths. The coronation ceremony officially started, and for such a solemn occasion like that, who dared to casually butt in? This was an impolite action, and that was simply a clear provocation towards the Celestial Light Sect. Anyone with a bit of brains would never do such a thing. Murong's face revealed an unpleasant look, and the movements of his hand paused as he turned back towards the entrance and spoke out sharply. Who dares to interrupt Celestial Light Sect's young sect master's coronation ceremony? How dare you? What audacity! The others also started to bustle as they all looked out towards the entrance. Only Li Lingchuan, who was kneeling on the ground, upon hearing this voice, made his brain went buzz. This voice was just too alike. Could it be that that man had suddenly came back to life? Li Lingchuan's heart pounded wildly, but he immediately convinced himself. Impossible. This is just impossible. It must be my misperception. It must be because I'm usually too afraid of Li Moying, so I'm having this hallucination. Dead people cannot come back to life. How could I even scare myself like that? Thinking of this, he too turned his head back as he cried out sharply towards the direction of the entrance. Who is that? How dare you play punk at Celestial Light Sect, and even dare to deceive us? Still not showing yourself quickly. Li Lingchuan, who gave you the guts to talk to yours truly like that? A frigidly cold but magnetic voice rang once again as it slowly floated in from the entrance. You can also listen on. Earlier, when that person spoke for the first time, it was a few mere words, and many of them had not reacted. But now he had spoken. A strange familiarity rang among everyone's ears. Momentarily, everyone was stunned as they exchanged glances, and all they could see were shock and surprise in one another's eyes. Everyone had the same thoughts in their minds. This is just too ridiculous. Could it be that Li Moying's departed spirit is back to Celestial Light Sect to demand vengeance for his grievances? This was simply seeing a ghost alive. Whereas at this moment, a powerful thunder attributed profound energy expanded from the mountain entrance's position. This profound energy came in the form of a lofty scale as it caused surging waves with an unequaled, overbearing might, as though a heavy hammer knocking on to everyone's chests. Those disciples with slightly weaker cultivations immediately turned green as their chests felt a surging turbulence. Everyone present had a change of expression as they had an unbelievable guess in their minds. They subconsciously split up in the middle to leave out a path from the mountain entrance. A tall, lanky figure walked in slowly from the entrance. His speed wasn't very fast, but every step was steady and firm, emitting a powerful, profound energy aura, making him appear as though he was a majestic, tall mountain in everyone's eyes. Everyone's gazes fell upon his face. Following that, everyone's mouth opened wide as their eyes popped out from their eye sockets in a dazed look, totally unable to say a word. Li Moying? Murongda was the first to regain his senses as he opened his mouth in disbelief. That outstanding, handsome look on that perfectly featured face had no flaw on it. His imposing manner was strong, and he was a man with excellent abilities which no one present could even recognize wrongly. Li Moying, South Sky region's first genius in the long history, Li Moying. Celestial Light Sect's once young sect master Li Moying. Only he had such peerless handsome looks. and only he had such unparalleled aura. It was enough to make everyone present bow down and submit to him uncontrollably. This was the genuine persona, Li Moying himself. Not some grieved spirit, but a living man, as the profound energy fluctuations emitting from him was too strong. Even those who stood very far away from him could sense that pressurizing suffocation, which was not something that an incomplete spirit could achieve. Moronda looked blankly at his own eldest disciple walking nearer, and he didn't manage to regain his senses in time. "You? How did you?" Li Moying had not appeared alone. By his side stood Huang Yueli, who was dressed in a white dress with delicate embroidered flowers, and when the two of them stood next to each other, the impeccable image of a talented man and a beautiful lady made them look like the perfect couple. As for those shadow guards who had disappeared in the cloudy Chilean mystic region, all of them reappeared as they followed behind him. Li Moying clutched Huang Yueli's hand as he looked straight and walked towards Moronda. After he stopped, he opened his mouth and spoke out coldly. "Master, how have you been? I know that you're anxious to find a new successor for the sect, but unfortunately, I'm not dead yet. So this so-called coronation ceremony is merely a joke." Moronda stared at him as his mouth opened wide. But, haven't you already fallen in the cloudy Chilean mystic region? No, gone missing. I personally led men to search for you around the surroundings for a few days, but we didn't even catch a glimpse of your shadow. Now that the mystic region has already closed for such a long time, how is it possible for you to leave that place by yourself? You can also listen on. Li Moying's lips curled up, which seemed like a smile, but not exactly one. However, beneath his eyes was a chilly, murderous intent, which made anyone who saw him born fear in their hearts. Even an established ninth-stage realm practitioner like Moronda, when meeting against his sight, couldn't help but have his hair stood up on its ends. Li Moying said coldly, "What's the matter? Could it be that Master had assumed that since the mystic region is shut, then there's really no way to come out? As long as I want to, I'd naturally have a way to do so. But that's the ancient mystic region. Our two sects with so many ninth-stage realm elders, spending so much profound energy together before we could barely activate the cloudy Chilean mystic region's entrance. Moreover, it can only be opened at a special designated timing. How could you possibly?" Li Moying didn't reply, merely casting his gaze towards Li Lingchuan, who was by the side. At this present moment, Li Lingchuan was already frightened out of his wits as his face turned as white as paper. Sweat kept dripping down from his forehead, and his body kept on trembling uncontrollably. Never in his wildest dreams had he expected that Li Moying had actually left the cloudy Chilean mystic region alive. But how is this possible? He had personally witnessed Li Moying pursuing Huang Yueli, and had directly jumped down that cliff. The bottom of the cliff was filled with high-level magical beasts, so no matter how strong Li Moying was, he absolutely could not have survived under the attack of so many high-level magical beasts. Moreover speaking, even if Li Moying's luck was really good and had not been eaten alive by those magical beasts, but it wasn't possible for him to use his own strength to activate the cloudy Chilean mystic region by himself. No matter how Li Lingchuan thought, there was no way he could understand what on earth was going on. But this fascinating thing had already happened right now. Li Lingchuan. Li Moying swept an indifferent glance at him as he slowly spoke out. "You don't seem very happy to see me come back? What are you afraid of? Have you not thought of the possibility that I could still return alive?" Li Lingchuan's face turned deadly white, but he said, Eldest senior brother, what joke? Are you cracking? How could I possibly not be happy? You're able to come back peacefully, so this is something which we Celestial Light sect should celebrate about. Of course I'm happy." He forcibly curled up his lips as he braced himself to say these words. At the same time, his thoughts swiftly turned in his mind, continuing to think if there was any way to whitewash himself, or some method which would allow him to escape from Li Moying's hands. However, he was in a fluster and couldn't think of any ideas at all. Li Moying's immense, profound energy aura had securely locked onto him, and under such a strong, imposing presence enveloping him. As long as he moved an inch, he would definitely suffer from Li Moying's profound energy's restraint. Li Moying laughed coldly. Really? Junior brother, Li really knows how to play dumb. Did you think I've got amnesia? That day in cloudy, Chilean Mystic Region's core region, you made a move towards me and my fiancé and attempted to push me down the cliff. These are things which had barely happened just slightly over a month ago. No, it's not like that. Eldest senior brother, you've mistaken. Things are not what you think it is. Listen to my explanation. Li Lingchuan's face was deadly pale as he kept on shaking his head vigorously. Although he was anxious, but he instinctively knew that if he absolutely could not admit to doing such things, to verify that he had done such a crime. Otherwise, there was no doubt that he would end up dead today. Li Moying was never soft-handed when he killed someone. If he could find a reason to get over this and refuted Li Moying's accusation, even if Li Moying wanted to kill him, Murondo would absolutely not ignore this. You can also listen on. Li Lingchuan's thoughts flew swiftly about in his mind when a light suddenly lit up. Eldest senior brother, you've really mistaken. That day by the side of the cliff, I absolutely wasn't trying to harm you, but to aid you. While I was in the Mystic region going on my experience learning, I accidentally heard that Lung Yifeng was going to deal you with a deadly move, so in order to save you, I rushed over. Just as we were crossing hands at the cliff, eldest senior brother, you suddenly appeared, hence you've misunderstood. His words sounded apparently right, but were actually wrong. He thought that since no one actually saw the true scenario, and Lung Yifeng had already died, Murong Fei was just like a grasshopper like him hanging on the same thread. So as long as he denied it all the way, who could expose him? His words had just fallen when Li Moying's murderous intent became even fiercer, apparently angered by a shameless agitation as his fingers moved, and he had the intent to kill him immediately. However, right at this moment, from his back, a figure suddenly scurried out as he pointed at Li Lingchuan's nose, swearing and cursing at him. You, simply turning black into white. I've never seen such a shameless scum like you before. After seeing that suddenly popped out figure clearly, everyone went into a commotion yet again. This is Sect Master Morong's other direct disciple, called Luo what again? He's Luo Jiyun. Right, that's him. Didn't they say that he had also died in that Mystic Region's experience learning trip? How'd he also come back to life? Looks like there's indeed something suspicious in this matter. Celestial light, sex, water is really deep. Luo Jiyun originally didn't want to interrupt his eldest senior brother, but on seeing Li Moying almost wanting to murder someone, he couldn't hold himself back. It wasn't that his ill-timed saintliness was acting up to stop Li Moying from killing him, but he was afraid that if Li Moying had a disagreement and made a move, then it would really make Li Lingchuan's lie become a truth. He knew that Li Moying couldn't be bothered to talk with this kind of scum and didn't bother about his reputation among the ordinary practitioners, but he, Luo Jiyun, minded that very much. His own senior brother was so suave and awesome. How could he possibly allow this kind of villain to splash dirty water onto him? He must expose Li Lingchuan's shameless, filthy mouth. Luo Jiyun suddenly popped out, and Li Moying was worried that he might injure him, so his action took a pause. What are you doing out here for? Luo Jiyun said loudly. Eldest senior brother, I've had enough of Li Lingchuan, that hypocritical villain, so just let me finish my words. He turned towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan, in the past I have still treated you as my senior brother. Occasionally those small little tricks which you plotted to scheme, eldest senior brother, I'd only treated those as you were acting in a moment of folly, hence I didn't complain about you in front of Master. But you actually colluded with outside people and almost got eldest senior brother killed. You're simply shameless to the extreme. That day's matters. Did you really think that it's done real, secretively? There's no witness? Unfortunately, I am not dead and is still alive and kicking, and I've witnessed everything that had happened that day. Let's put aside that fact that you and Lung Yifeng colluded together to harm eldest senior brother. You even used me to threaten sister-in-law and coerced her to be together with Lung Yifeng. Luo Jiyun spoke frankly with assurance, explaining in detail what had happened. Following his description, the public square's discussion got louder and louder. There was a huge disparity between both their sayings, and evidently, Li Lingchuan had just tried to brush past this by giving vague descriptions without any elaboration, whereas Luo Jiyun was able to speak out each single detail clearly, explaining the cause and effect clearly. So anyone with a bit of judgment will be able to tell who had a higher possibility of speaking the truth. Heavens! So the rumor is actually true. Li Lingchuan had really dealt his own senior brother a deadly blow, just because of the position of young sect master. You can also listen on. This is really the greatest gossip ever. Li Lingchuan actually did something so disgraceful, even daring to scheme his own senior brother. It seems that Celestial Light sect is absolutely going to have their reputation going down the drain this time around. Isn't that so? Celestial Light sect had always been South Sky region's major powerhouse's leader and is usually almighty, but whoever knew that this time round they created such a scandal like this? Both parties actually had a confrontation in front of so many strongholds. TSK. I think it won't take a few days before this scandal is going to revolve around the entire soaring heavens continent. This is really going to be bustling. Various guests from those major sects were roaring with excitement as they pricked up their ears while gloating over the misfortune. Muronda was shaking all over from this piece of news. Even though he had subconsciously considered this possibility, but he still wasn't willing to believe that such a thing could really happen. Ji-yoon, what you said, is it the truth? You must report the truth and not take any sides. Is it really your second senior brother who harmed eldest senior brother? Luo Jiyun replied bitterly. Master, I'm not siding anyone. What I said is the entire truth. I can swear to heaven that if I've lied in any way, may I be struck by lightning. Murong turned his vision towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan's heart thumped hard, and he clenched his teeth and continued denying. You still dare to say you're not taking any sides? You and Li Moing are on good terms and had always excluded me. This is an open secret within Celestial Light sect. Which disciple doesn't know about this? Why are you putting up an act? According to what you say, I'm the one who harmed eldest senior brother, then will everyone please judge this reasonably? Based on my cultivation, how could I possibly harm eldest senior brother? Even if it was a sneak attack, there's no way I could do anything to him. Usually, Li Lingchuan would never admit that Li Moying's ability was much stronger than his. But now in front of so many people trying to whitewash himself, he could only admit to this fact through his clenched teeth. When he said these words out, he sensed that he seemed to have been slapped by someone, which made him feel extremely embarrassed. What made him even more embarrassed was that when he said that, no one actually casted any doubts towards his ability, as everyone deeply felt that what he said was reasonable as they all started to nod their heads. Isn't that so? The disparity between the two of their abilities are just too far apart. Li Lingchuan probably can't even take one move from Li Moing. A genius like Li Moing, even if it was Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng added together, could not possibly harm him. This matter indeed sounds a little too ridiculous. Could Luo Jiyun really have exaggerated the entire matter? A small portion of people expressed the doubts in their minds, and when these discussions entered everyone's ears, not only did Li Lingchuan not feel the joy of escaping death. Instead, he felt his face turning fiery red. So which he had thought highly of himself during this period of time, the others were actually treating him like a joke. In other people's minds, he could not even be compared to one finger of Moing's. When Luo Jiyun heard the doubts, he pursed his lips and seemed as though he hesitated for a moment, but eventually, he still opened his mouth. Eldest senior brother fell for it. Of course isn't because his ability didn't match up to you, but because Murong Fei was one of his accomplices. She was the one who personally pushed Lil's sister-in-law down the cliff, and eldest senior brother jumped down the cliff in order to save sister-in-law. Otherwise, just based on you and Lung Yifeng. How could you possibly have harmed eldest senior brother? He originally wanted to leave some face for his master Murong thinking of exposing Murong Fei's crimes in private later. But now seeing that Li Lingchuan had shamelessly continued to whitewash himself, he could only say this out. You can also listen on. When this was told, it immediately caused a brand new commotion among the crowd. Celestial Light Sect's scandal was getting bigger and bigger. Not only did it have to do with the fight over young sect master's authority, it even implicated the sect master's daughter. Li Lingchuan's lies had been exposed on the spot, and his expression turned extremely embarrassed. But he quickly stabilized himself as he gritted his teeth and hissed, "You weaved your lie as though it was real. Of course there's no such thing. This is also something that you made up. How could third junior sister possibly do such a thing? Master, don't tell me you don't believe in me and third junior sister's character?" Murong was originally convinced by what Luo Jian said, but upon hearing such words, he started to become hesitant again. Murong Fei was after her as most pampered eldest daughter, but now she had been accused of murdering Li Moying's fiancé in public, sending the gazes from the guests of various major powerhouses. Murong's face was almost about to fall off. However, he wasn't willing to accept the fact that his own daughter would do such a thing like this. He looked at Murong Fei. "Feier, what exactly is going on? You really didn't do such a thing, right?" Eldest senior brother. Murong Fei opened her mouth, but it wasn't to answer her father's question, but to call out for Li Moying. In reality, the minute Li Moying appeared in front of everyone, Murong Fei's gaze had been fixated on him, not knowing if it was her misperception or what. Murong Fei felt that Li Moying's appearance this time round seemed to be even more handsome and suave, and even more powerful and charming. As though he had shed his mortal body and changed wholly, as an unexcelled top expert's aura appeared to be even grander and condensed than before. To any woman, this overbearing might which belonged to the strong, when paired to that handsome-looking face, was a fatal attraction. Li Lingchuan turned his head back, and upon seeing her gaze, his face turned green immediately. There was nothing more face-slapping than this. His own fiancée had actually ignored himself by her side as she used that star-studded gaze to stare at another man. Wasn't this obviously putting on a green hat for him? Moreover, it was under the situation when so many people were around. Indeed, the public square started to emit some jeering sounds on and off. Li Lingchuan got even more flabbergasted as his tone was tinged with unpleasantry. "Fair, what's wrong with you? Haven't you heard Master asking you a question? Quickly answer him. You're such a kind-hearted person, so how could you possibly have harmed by Ruoli?" Murong Fei then regained her senses. Right, father. How could you possibly not even believe in me? I absolutely have not pushed by. Missed by." She had lost her footing and fell down herself, and I happened to be nearby, but I wasn't able to pull her up in time. Speaking of this, I indeed have some responsibility as well, because I had not noticed Miss Bai's situation then. But this is really an accident. Such a matter happening isn't something that anyone wanted to see. When Li Lingchuan heard that what she said wasn't quite bad as it was the same saying as what they had discussed, the expression on his face then smoothened a little. Luckily, although this woman was quick to change sides and was a wanton woman, but at least she still knew what was important. In actual fact, how could he possibly have known that Murong Fei's soul had flown towards Li Moying once again? The reason why she had remembered to say this was not to help Li Lingchuan whitewash himself, but was so that she could use this opportunity to get close to Li Moying once again, hence she put on this act. After Murong obtained the answer that he wanted to hear, he muttered softly, "Jian, this matter is probably a mistake. You can also listen on." To say that Fei or they all had harmed someone, but there's no evidence. And as this is a huge matter, we shouldn't come to a conclusion so easily. If there's really a mistake somewhere, it's not good if we wrongly accused anyone, right? Murong fiddled with his beard and hesitated for a moment. You have just come back from the cloudy Chilan Mystic region and have all been tired out. I see quite a number of you still have injuries on you, so it's better to hurry back and rest. Your master, I will investigate the truth in this matter to return you justice. Although Moronga indistinctively felt that there wasn't something quite right with this matter, but he still chose to stand by his biological daughter's side. His beloved wife had passed on early, leaving just these 2 daughters for him. Murong and I had already become the sex traitor and despised by everyone, so surely he could not bear to see Murong and I becoming a murderer, right? Luo Jiyun was so infuriated that he was shaking with anger. He had not expected that even his master, who he had always respected, had actually abused the fact to flip things around. This is totally not a misunderstanding. The truth is exactly as what I've said. What other evidence do you need? Murong frowned as he felt that this disciple of his was really, to put it in a nice way, he was called frank and honest. If it was put in a bad way, it was called dense. With so many outsider sex guests around, exposing Celestial Light sex internal scandal. Even if what he said was the truth, what use was it to him? The entire Celestial Light sect would have its reputation completely ruined because of this. Jiyun, you're really tired. It's better for you to go take a rest. Luo Jiyun was agitated and wanted to continue speaking when he heard a sweet voice coming from his back. Junior brother Luo, stop arguing with sect master Murong. Perhaps you might have really seen it wrongly. Huang Yuli had been standing right beside Li Moying, listening to their arguments silently, as though she was one of the audience watching the show. But now, she suddenly opened her mouth. When Luo Jian heard that, he turned out abruptly as he looked at her in shock. Lil's sister-in-law. He wanted to say, have you taken the wrong medicine? How could you tell a blatant lie about this kind of thing? But his gaze shifted towards Li Moying's icy cold face, and he immediately shut his mouth. Huang Yuli casted a glance at him and suddenly stretched out her arm to hug Li Moying's arm and leaned against her own fiancé, giving off a sweet smile. I feel that eldest Miss Murong couldn't have possibly pushed me on purpose. After all, she has no reason to do so. In the past, we thought that it was because she liked my Moying, hence she went against me. But today I discovered that it was really all a misunderstanding. The one who eldest Miss Murong really liked is Master Li. Speaking of that, I haven't congratulated Master Li and Miss Murong. Today the 2 of you are getting engaged, and the lovers finally got married. It's really a heavenly, joyous occasion. Moying, we've come empty-handed and haven't prepared any gift. Is it not nice of us to do this? Huang Yuli's eyes were really large as she put on an obedient look while clinging next to Li Moying's side. Li Moying saw her innocent look and knew that she was up to no good. This young lass, the more she looked obedient, the more ill-intentions she had. He just switched a train of thoughts and knew exactly what Huang Yuli was planning as his eyes flashed a smile filled with adoration as he stretched his hand out to bring her into his embrace, lowering his head as he gave a light peck on her fair forehead. No matter, things were unexpected, so it's understandable that we didn't bring along any gifts. At most, when we get married later on, we'll just not accept their red packet. Murong Fei saw their intimate gestures, and her face instantly turned green with anger. You can also listen on. By Ruoli, this wretched lass, wasn't she a little too smug? She was actually acting so intimately in public with eldest senior brother. It was simply too improper. What was so great about this wretched lass? Why did eldest senior brother take a fancy to her? Murong Fei was feeling stuffed, especially when she heard Li Moying say to get married to this wretched lass, which poked in her sensitive senses as she blurted out, You two are really going to get married? Huang Yuli looked at her puzzledly as she asked, What's so strange about that? We are originally fiancé and fiancé, so it's just a matter of time before we get married. Speaking of that, it's all thanks to you that you didn't manage to hold on to me at the cliff. When I fell down the cliff, I saw Moying risking his own life to jump down to save me. That made me feel really touched, hence we've decided to hold our wedding in the near future. This is all thanks to eldest Miss Murong's freak accidental matchmaking, so we should really thank you properly. When she said that, she was entirely leaning in Li Moying's arms, putting on a cute and helpless look. Murong Fei saw that, and it simply angered her so much that it almost made her die of anger. Why did that wretched lass not seem to die? She was even displaying the deep affection which eldest senior brother had towards her. Recalling back on how cold and distant eldest senior brother treated her usually, Murong Fei felt that Huang Yueli was simply just ridiculing her. Furthermore, Huang Yueli seemed to have guessed what she was thinking about. When Murong Fei looked towards her, she coincidentally curled up her lips, revealing a smile which was filled with provocation and ridicule. Murong Fei originally could still barely remember her own stand and identity, but after being despised so clearly, she finally lost her rationality. She stared at Huang Yueli angrily as she clenched her teeth and said, "You? Who was trying to matchmake you? I wanted you to die. Why are you still not dead yet? Don't be too complacent and think that you can monopolize eldest senior brother. Sooner or later, I'll let you die in front of me." When Murong Fei blurted out such words, Huang Yueli immediately opened her eyes wide with a shocked look. What are you saying? You want me to die? Why? Don't you like Master Li? You're immediately going to become Mrs. Li. Huang Yueli used all her might to step on Murong Fei's sore spot. The words Mrs. Li was like a sharp knife, stabbing right into Murong Fei's chest. She recalled just how dumb she was. Why did she agree to marry Li Lingchuan? Now that Li Moying had returned, she had conveniently allowed this wretched lass to gain an advantage for nothing, and she was so angry that she had nowhere to vent her anger. Unfortunately, Huang Yueli just had to show off right in front of her. Murong Fei was both angry and anxious. She stared at Huang Yueli furiously and was just about to open her mouth, but in the same instance when their eyes met, Murong Fei's mind suddenly went buzz. For a moment, she seemed to have seen a strange glint in Huang Yueli's eyes, and it instantly eluded her consciousness. Hey, what thing is Li Lingchuan? If it wasn't for the fact that he has a handle onto me, would I have taken a fancy on him? Only eldest senior brother is compatible with me. I'm warning you, you'd better scram from eldest senior brother's side, otherwise there will be plenty of times when you will accidentally lose your footing from cliffs, so don't blame me for not reminding you. Murong Fei had lost all her rationality as she spoke incoherently, voicing out all the malicious swearing right from the bottom of her heart. Huang Yueli's lips curled into a smile which wasn't like a smile as she said in a meaningful tone, "Oh, so that's the case. In this way, my falling down the cliff isn't an accident?" Murong Fei then realized that she had said the wrong words as a deadly pale color filled her entire face. You can also listen on. No, that's not true. You've heard it wrongly, no. I said it wrongly. She tried her best to explain, but there was already no way to explain. Earlier when she spoke out accidentally, it had already clearly explained everything. Murong Fei's jealousy towards Huang Yueli had already been exhibited in her speech. Furthermore, she kept repeatedly cursing her to go and die, including the fact that in her words, she had clearly mentioned letting Huang Yueli suffer from multiple lost footing and falling down the cliff. If she said now that she had not intentionally pushed Huang Yueli down, no one would believe her. Murong Fei kept on shaking her head, simply not believing that these words came out right from her own mouth. She had actually lost her own rationality to such a step. Earlier for a moment, she only felt that she was so upset to the limit that a burst of flame was about to explode in her chest, and immediately following that, her mind went blank as though she had lost her senses. By the time she regained her senses, those malicious, truthful thinking had already come right out of her mouth. Why did she do that? Even though she had been trying to find ways to make that little slut die. But she had never lost herself so much to have taken such a step before. Furthermore, it was under this kind of occasion, so wasn't this simply seeking death's path for herself? Murong Fei would have never thought in her wildest dream that she had been struck with Huang Yueli's piercing eye technique, hence losing her senses. The public square's guests and disciples had totally disregarded all formalities as they all couldn't hold themselves back from talking about this matter. Did you all hear what eldest young Miss Murong said? So, She really wanted to send young sect master Li's fiancé to her death. Not only thinking about it, I think she had already done it. From the meaning of her words, Mr. Luo's accusations are totally true. She's the one who pushed Miss Bai down the cliff. This woman's heart is really too malicious. How could there be such a venomous woman? To think that I had once liked her so much, thinking that she was a talented lady with both outstanding looks and innate talent. My senior brother had even been secretly admiring her. Whoever knew that she's such a hypocrite right down into her bones? It's all an act. Which way is this malicious? She's just dumb. She actually retardedly spoke out the entire truthful thinking in her mind upon seeing young sect master Li and his fiancée getting intimate. Not only had she admitted her crime, she had also indirectly proved that what Mr. Luo said was the entire truth. Li Lingchuan and the others had really colluded together to work against young sect master Li. Tisk tsk. Speaking of this, she's really a one woman. One moment she said she liked young sect master Li. The next moment, she's getting engaged to Li Lingchuan. Now that she saw young sect master Li leaving the mystic region safely, she wanted to stick back to him? Hey, did she really thought all men are idiots who can be fooled within her palms? Everyone's words were filled with despise towards Murong Fei. After all, Murong Fei's sculpted cold and saintly image was simply too successful. She was a first-class talented young lady in South Sky region. No matter if it was in terms of background, innate talent, looks, or talent, she was the first choice in every aspect. Usually she put on an almighty cool look which attracted admiration from many young talent for various sects. Even though everyone knew she liked Li Moying, but she held herself very well and rarely displayed actions which were too much in front of others. Hence she didn't give anyone the chance to look down on her as well. After all, what kind of genius grade was Li Moying? A man so powerful to this extent made all people from the same gender helplessly felt jealous of him. You can also listen on. A talented lady admiring him wasn't some devaluing matter, as others would only feel that it was very common. But now, she had changed faces overnight, which made her image, which she had painstakingly built up over the years, collapsed instantly. So, Murong Fei wasn't some aloof fairy, but such a sinister and treacherous woman on the inside. Never mind that she was so malicious, but she was still that dumb to admit whatever bad things she had done, simply retarded to the stage where no one could bear to look at her straight. Moreover, she assumed that Li Moying was dead and was just about to marry Li Lingchuan, but now that she saw Li Moying appearing once again, she immediately tried to turn back, without any aspect of a woman's virtuousness. This action made anyone who saw it wanted to berate her as shameless. Henceforth, Murong Fei's image was completely ruined. Murong Fei actually realized that swiftly, but since she could rescind the words which she had said, and upon hearing the crowds whispering in the public square, sensing the disdainful gazes from the audience, her eyes blacked out, and she almost fainted on the spot. She could not understand why was it that she could be so retarded to such an extent for that instant. Li Moying, however, was very clear what his own fiancée had been up to. Earlier, when Huang Yueli extended her piercing sky eye technique, he clearly sensed her profound energy fluctuations, hence, he clearly understood her plan right from the start. His lure had intentionally agitated Murong Fei, and after she had infuriated her to the max limit, she chose a suitable timing to use her eye technique to mess up her rationality, making her say out the words in her mind. She had dug a hole to bury herself in it. Li Moying lowered his head and looked at Huang Yueli, and coincidentally Huang Yueli also turned over to look at him. The two of them exchanged glances, and Huang Yueli smiled sweetly. That crafty and black-bellied look made Li Moying feel emotionally affected. If it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't suitable, he really wanted to hug and kiss her. These two were full of tender feelings for each other as it blinded Luo Jiyun and the bunch of Shadow Guard's dog eyes, as they all started to cough lightly while they turned their heads away. Everything was good about following these two masters, but the only thing was the minute they had a disagreement, they would torture the dogs, simply had no consideration for others at all. This made them singles feel so embarrassed. On one hand, while this side was engaged in uninterrupted affection, on the other hand, Murong Fei's matter wasn't considered completed yet. She had blurted out the words in her heart, damaging not only the fall of her own image, but it was equivalent to confessing to everyone about herself, Li Lingchuan and the others colluding together, which also caused Murongda, who had been taking her side, to ruin his reputation totally. Li Lingchuan was so angry that his face turned green while he cried out sharply, "Murong Fei, you're simply spouting nonsense. Do you know what you're saying? I really didn't expect that you're such a shameless, vicious, and wanton woman. I've really seen you wrongly. I thought that you had unintentionally seen sister-in-law falling down the cliff and wasn't able to pull onto her in time. I not expected that it was really you who pushed her down. You've even deceived me. You're simply too venomous." Li Lingchuan was simply going to cry dumb by this woman. On seeing her reputation completely ruined in a quarter of an hour, Li Lingchuan made a decisive decision to push all the blame onto Murong Fei immediately as he tried his best to pull himself out of it. It was impossible for him to be dragged down by this kind of brainless woman. However, Li Lingchuan was hasty in choosing a way out, only remembering to whitewash himself, but he had forgotten that he and Murong Fei were on the same boat. Murong Fei had a handle on him. You can also listen on. When Murong Fei heard his words, she first went into a blank, apparently not expecting that Li Lingchuan had a change of face that quickly. One should know that during this period of time, Li Lingchuan had been placing all his attention on her as he pampered and fawned on her. He could be regarded as a love sage. If it wasn't for this, she wouldn't have agreed to getting engaged to Li Lingchuan in such a short span of time after assuming that Li Moying had died. Murong Fei had thought that she had found another sentimental man who could be used by her, but she had not expected that Li Lingchuan was actually making use of her instead. The minute the truth was exposed, he didn't even hesitate to offer any deficiencies as he immediately casted her aside. Murong Fei's expression turned menacing. "Li Lingchuan, what do you mean by that? Are you trying to throw all the responsibilities onto me? Do you think that you are able to cast it all aside? It's you and Lung Yifeng, the both of you who had started planning even before we entered the cloudy Qilin Mystic region on how to harm eldest senior brother. You'd still been lying to me that you only want to murder by Ruoli. Did you really think that I didn't know about that? If it wasn't for the fact that you had seen me pushing by Ruoli in order to stop you from threatening me to keep this secret, I wouldn't marry a cruel and unscrupulous thing like you." Murong Fei had really pressed all her luck out. Anyway, her reputation was already at rock bottom, and the matter where she harmed someone could no longer be hidden, hence she had nothing more to fear. Li Lingchuan actually tried to hit her while she was down, then she wouldn't mind entering a life and death struggle with him as well. Li Lingchuan's expression turned uglier. He had always known that Murong Fei totally wasn't into him. Every single time, she merely ordered him around, completely different from when she acted affectionately, to the extent of offering herself to Li Moying. But today, Murong Fei had once and again bore it all, making this future fiancé's face unable to hang on any further. In this way, there was no way that they wouldn't tore their faces apart. Li Lingchuan couldn't stop himself from retorting out, "Murong Fei, who are you calling cruel and unscrupulous? It's you who's wanting, all right? I'm threatening you? It's plainly yourself who couldn't wait to find another man on seeing that Li Moying might possibly be dead. I'm threatening you? Did I force you to push by Ruoli down the cliff? I'm telling you, if not for the fact that you're the eldest young miss of Celestial Light Sect, for such a venomous and fickle woman like you, you're not even fit to lift my shoes for me. Would I even get engaged with you?" Murong Fei was originally abused by him badly as her face had turned into a pig liver color. She had always been pursued after by numerous men, so since when had she ever been scolded that directly by anyone? Her anger got the better of her, and this time round, she totally didn't care about anything else as she stretched out her finger and pointed her trembling fingers towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan, don't you take things too far. I'm telling you, the dirty things which you've done, I'm very clear of it all. Don't force me to spill the beans right here. When Li Lingchuan heard that, his heart constricted as he was slightly scared stiff. But changing his frame of thoughts, the handle, which Murong Fei knew wasn't that he had schemed Li Moying. Earlier he had decided not to admit it even if he was beaten to death, and he had already thrown the pot over to Murong Fei. So what else was he still afraid of? He gauged that Murong Fei was merely trying to put on a bluff, so he shouldn't fall for her trick. Li Lingchuan laughed coldly. Don't think that just sprouting some casual specious words, and you'll be able to splash dirty water onto me. I stayed upright and did righteous things, so could I possibly be scared of your nonsensical words? Murong Fei gritted her teeth as she looked at him and hissed a sentence out from the slits of her teeth. Don't think I don't know. Lung Yifeng was stabbed to death by you. You can also listen on. Murong Fei's words was like a bomb, incinerating the entire public square. What? Lung Yifeng? Have I heard wrongly? The Lung Yifeng whom eldest Miss Murong was talking about is the eldest disciple from Green Cloud sect? That's right, but earlier wasn't Luo Jiyun and the rest saying that Lung Yifeng had colluded with Li Lingchuan and was in a cooperative relationship? Why is it that now she's saying that Li Lingchuan had killed Lung Yifeng? I remembered that at the entrance of Cloudy Qilin Mystic Region, Li Lingchuan mentioned that Lung Yifeng was struck dead by Li Moying when they were engaged in a battle. But now Murong Fei said this. Could it be that there's really something suspicious about this matter? Heavens, if this is true, then something big is going to happen. Sect Master Chui from Green Cloud Sect is right here today to attend the coronation ceremony. Right at this moment, Green Cloud Sect Master Chui Yuanshan was seated in the VIP seating. Originally after Lung Yifeng's death, he had also turned tables with Murong Da. Today he had appeared at this place was not because the two sects had reached a peace treaty, but because Murong and I had an affair with Fong Xiaoning in the Cloudy Qilin Mystic region, and she actually gotten pregnant. Both sects were reputable, and since such a farce had occurred between their direct disciples, Murong and I could only marry over to Green Cloud sect. Chui Yuanshan most unwillingly headed over to discuss this matter, and coincidentally, he had come in time for the coronation ceremony, hence, he tugged his utmost displeasure to attend this event. Whoever knew that this event gave him a shocking piece of truth. When Chui Yuanshan heard Murong Fei's words, he was so agitated that he stood right up and overturned the teacups right next to him. Murong Fei, what did you say? Lung Yifeng was killed by Li Lingchuan? Wasn't it said that Li Moying had accidentally killed him when they were crossing hands? Speak clearly. Originally, Chui Yuanshan had already believed Li Lingchuan's words because Lung Yifeng had tried to plot against Li Moying first, plus the fact that he was killed during a battle, so no matter what, it was Lung Yifeng at fault. Later on, everyone thought that Li Moying was already dead and there was no way to seek revenge, hence this matter just settled by leaving it unsettled. But now, things had taken an unexpected turn, and there was a totally new saying. Could it be that he was tricked by Li Lingchuan? Li Lingchuan had a huge change of expression as the sweat on his forehead kept on sprouting. His hands and feet were chilly as he was anxious to the maximum limit. He had assumed that he had done it so discreetly that no one knew about it. Even if it was Li Moying himself, he wasn't sure that when he injured Lung Yifeng heavily, did he really kill that person? Whoever knew that today his lies were all exposed by Murong Fei? What was going on? How did Murong Fei find out that he was the one who killed Lung Yifeng? Li Lingchuan's heart started palpitating, but he forced himself to maintain his composure. He knew that he could not reveal any flaws, otherwise he would really be dead meat this time. From his point of view, Lung family was much stickier than Li Moying by at least 100 times. Such an influential family strength. Killing him was as easy as crushing an ant, wasn't it? Murong Fei, don't you go slandering me venomously. The situation then wasn't only seen by you. Lung Yifeng had tried to assassinate eldest senior brother, but in the end, he was heavily struck down in one move. Later on, Lung Yifeng used the profound artifact which his family had left for him, but it was still decoded by eldest senior brother as he was struck flying off and spitting out blood at the same time, later on losing his consciousness. Later on, as there wasn't anyone who could save him, hence he had died due to a prolonged lapse of time from excessive bleeding. Saying that, he turned towards Luo Jiun. Luo Jiun, you were one of the witnesses then. You can also listen on. Everyone's gazes fell onto Luo Jiun once again. Luo Jiun frowned slightly as he replied hesitantly. This, actually when he was by the side of the cliff, after Li Moying and Huang Yueli had both fallen and jumped off the cliff sequentially. He lost consciousness after that, and he didn't know when Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei left. But right before he lost consciousness, what he had seen was exactly as what Li Lingchuan had described. His character was upright and just, and he had never lied before. But in this case, wouldn't it be equivalent to testifying for Li Lingchuan to accuse that his eldest senior brother had killed Lung Yifeng? However, not waiting for his reply, Li Lingchuan had already continued speaking. See, junior brother Luo can't say anything else, right? If I'm the one who killed him, then would Luo Jiun be so hesitant in reply? Apparently, he was killed by Li Moying. That's why he doesn't have the cheek to say it out. Honestly speaking, as a large family's descendant, Lung Yifeng has many profound artifacts on him, and just based on my cultivation. Sect Master Chui, do you feel that I am able to kill him? Being asked in such a manner, Chui Yuanshan frowned, feeling that he might possibly have gotten it wrong. Back then in the cloudy Qilin mystic region, the only person who had the ability to kill Lung Yifeng was only Li Moying. Furthermore, he had the motive and chance to do so. He turned his head towards Li Moying. Li Moying, this matter concerning my disciple won't wait. Sect Master Chui, don't you believe in Li Lingchuan's nonsense? When Murong Fei saw that, she couldn't help but cried out loudly. Li Lingchuan, did you really think that I haven't seen anything at all? That time, you were the first to get up and Lung Yifeng begged you for help, but you saw riches which provoked evil designs, hence you stabbed him to death with your dagger. You even stole his realm ring and profound weapons and profound artifacts. This is something which I've seen with my own eyes. Li Lingchuan instantly turned chilly. What nonsense are you sprouting? Don't think that by weaving a lie like that, you're able to divert away everyone's attention, and that you're able to whitewash yourself. Murong Fei stared at him furiously. Why? Dare to do it, but no guts to admit? Did you really think that both I and junior brother Luo were unconscious, so no one would know about it, hence you dared to kill Lung Yifeng? In actual fact, I had regained consciousness long ago, but on seeing you killing him, I could only pretend to lose consciousness. I was afraid that you would eliminate me. Actually, I've seen every single thing that you've done. Li Lingchuan stopped her sharply. Shut up. What nonsense are you sprouting? I don't understand a single word of it. His mind went blank, and his legs turned into jelly as he almost fell onto the ground. Never in his wildest dream had he thought that his seamless plans had actually been exposed. Furthermore, at this juncture, to be exposed by Murong Fei in front of Chui Yuanshan. Murong Fei had actually seen this, but she actually pretended to have fainted. How is that possible? If he had long knew that Murong Fei had grasped this handle of his, then he would absolutely not tear faces with Murong Fei so easily earlier. But now, it was too late to say anything. No matter how menacing Li Lingchuan's appearance was, insisting that it was Murong Fei who was creating rumors. But everyone present were not idiots, and Chui Yuanshan was an astute and circumspect sect master from a large sect, so how could he possibly be cheated by this performance? Anyone with a bit of brains was able to tell that Murong Fei had spoken so frankly and straightforwardly, hence, she definitely had something to support her. Good, very good, extremely good. Chui Yuanshan's face as deep as water, as his gloomy cold gaze was fixated onto Li Lingchuan. You can also listen on. Li Lingchuan shuddered as he furiously shook his head to deny the allegations. Chui, Sect Master Chui, You cannot just listen to Murong Fei's one-sided story. I didn't. I really didn't. That day when I regained consciousness, Lung Yifeng was already dead. He had died due to serious injuries which he sustained from Lemoying and had nothing to do with me at all. Don't listen to Murong Fei's nonsense. She's just a woman who is full of lies. Oof. I think you're the loser who is full of lies. Murong Fei immediately rebutted. Weren't you just greedy for Lung Yifeng's treasures on him, hence you killed him, so that you can take his treasures for your own? Sect Master Chui. In order to verify that what I said was correct, it's very simple. You just need to catch him and search his realm ring. Then you'll be able to see if there's any of Lung Yifeng's belongings inside. You. Li Lingchuan had an abrupt change of colors as he really didn't expect Murong Fei to scam him in such a way. As he was afraid of being exposed, he didn't dare to use the treasures which Lung Yifeng left behind, but he had been carrying it around with him, preparing to find a chance to head toward Sky Emperor City to exchange for money. If he was seriously captured and searched, then he would be exposed for sure. Cui Yuanshan apparently felt that it was a good idea as he nodded his head immediately. That's right, this sect master has the same sentiments. He was already at the verge of blowing his top, and if what Murong Fei said was true, then Li Lingchuan was truly a despicable and utterly shameless villain. After all practitioners held in contempt on the action of suddenly changing faces while their companions were heavily injured, than to retain the other party's treasures for their own. No one wished for their own companions to betray and murder them while they were in the middle of experience training. Hence, the minute anyone did that, that person would be condemned by all the practitioners in the whole world. Momentarily, the audience in the public square were all furious beyond words, and some even started swearing loudly. Li Lingchuan is just too cheap. He dared to even do such a thing like this? He still has the cheek to claim Murong Fei is a wanton woman? I think the both of them, one is scum while the other one is cheap, they're really a match made in heaven. Heavens, it's simply too shameless. He's even a large sect's direct disciple, and he actually did such a thing. Is there any difference from being a robber? Celestial Light Sect actually wants to promote such a person to become young sect master. Is Murong de blind or what? Li Lingchuan plopped down on his knees and started pleading for mercy. Sect Master Chui, spare me. Please spare my life. I really didn't kill anyone. Yes, I admit that I had taken Mr. Lung's realm ring, but I absolutely didn't kill him. I merely felt that those treasures left behind in the mystic region was a huge waste, so I helped him to retrieve it out. Cui Yuanshan's face had turned deep like water as his gaze was fixated onto Li Lingchuan while he spoke out coldly. Whether it's real or fake, after you reach Sky Emperor City, go explain to the Lung family yourself. Don't blame this sect master for not reminding you that Lung family has an exclusive soul-searching skill. So no matter if what you said is the truth or not, there's absolutely no way to conceal the facts. Hearing that, Li Lingchuan had an abrupt change of color as he started shaking all over. Soul-searching skill. This ancient secret arts was something which an established powerhouse in Sky Emperor City could grasp, and he had also heard rumors on it. It required a practitioner with extremely powerful mental power to forcibly inject in his profound energy to read the memories of the person whose soul was being searched. Any lies under the secret arts had no way to hide. What was most terrifying of all was that this secret arts caused a destructive damage to the practitioner's primordial spirit. You can also listen on. The minute Lung family's top exponents used the soul-searching skill on him, the lightest injury would be damage to his primordial spirit, causing his cultivation to take drastic drop, or the worse was that he could completely lose his senses, turning into a living dead. There was also the possibility of losing his life on the spot. No matter which outcome it wasn't something which he could handle. Moreover, the minute his soul was searched, the matter where he had murdered Lung Yifeng would be exposed, and what awaited him was absolutely all kinds of cruel tortures which was worse than dying. Li Lingchuan's soul almost flew out as he tried his best to explain. Sect Master Chui, I really didn't. Please let me off. Chui Yuanshan's face was icy cold as he remained unmoved. As Lung Yifeng had died in Green Cloud Sect's organized experience learning, he had been under tremendous pressure from the Lung family for this period of time, and the entire sect was affected by this. Now he had finally found the main culprit to answer to Lung family. So no matter what, he would never give up on this chance. Li Lingchuan looked at him with a staunch look, so he could only turn towards Murongda and plead for mercy. He kept on kowtowing on the ground as he pleaded pitifully. Master, please save me. I cannot go to the Lung family. I cannot let them search my soul. The sect had used so much effort to nurture me, so surely you won't want to see me lose my cultivation like that, right? Master, on account that we are master-disciple, I beg you to please save me. Muronda lowered his head and looked at his second disciple who knelt on the ground. Towards this disciple, he had some feelings since he had also been under him since young, and he watched him growing up little by little. However, the matter which was caused by Li Lingchuan had largely surpassed his bottom line. He had first been exposed that because of Celestial Light Sect's young sect master's position, he disregarded everything and caused harm to his own senior brother. Immediately following that, he turned tables against Murongda's biological daughter, turning into foes to mutually frame and entrap the other. Lastly, he was exposed of his greed, turning into murder, killing Lung family's descendant. Any of these three items were enough to make any practitioner being disdained by everyone consigned to eternal damnation. Li Lingchuan, today he had completely reduced Celestial Light Sect into the entire pugilist world's laughingstock. Celestial Light Sect had been passed on from generation to generation and had finally managed to establish some prestige, had totally been ruined today. No matter if it was in terms of public or private, Murongda was totally unable to accept this matter. What's more, if he defended Li Lingchuan today, Lung family might just come over to seek revenge another day. This kind of strong powerhouse in soaring heaven's continents was not something that a small little sect like them could afford to offend. Murongda looked deeply at Li Lingchuan, and he already came to an understanding in his heart. He gave a deep sigh. Lingchuan, this master had been guiding you for so many years that one's character is more important than cultivation. If you can't even become a righteous person, then what's the point of it all no matter how high your cultivation gets? You've really made this master too disappointed. Li Lingchuan's heart thumped wildly. Master, you can't do this to me. Murongda frowned. You've created this sin yourself, so you naturally need to bear the consequences. No matter what happens, you deserve it. Committing such a huge offense, this master could only choose to place righteousness before family. His devotion to righteousness, which inspired reverence, made Li Lingchuan's heart turn ashen. He knew that this master of his had always been timid, and at this juncture, he would absolutely not save him. But could it be that he was just waiting for death like that? No, he absolutely could not accept this result. Why? Why did things turn out this way? Today was obviously the day where he was most proud of his success. You can also listen on. All that he ever wanted, status, authority, beauty, were all right in front of him. But why had it just been a blink of an eye and everything had turned into bubbles popping into illusions, even pulling him into the abyss of the bottomless hell? Li Lingchuan's face was utterly defeated as he sat despondently on the ground in a kneeling position. Chui Yuanshan gave a cold humph and said, "What's the matter? Done with your rubbish talk? Sect Master Murong has finally dealt with this reasonably. Not that I want to say this kind of scum of the sect who had dragged down the entire sect should have been driven out long ago. Today, this sect master shall help you clean up your place." Saying that, he stretched out his hand, and the profound energy injected within viciously struck towards Li Lingchuan's chest. This move was tumultuous. Anyone could tell that if Li Lingchuan was hit, he would absolutely have all his meridians shattered, causing him to lay limp on the ground, just waiting to be slaughtered. Li Lingchuan himself knew this clearer than anyone else. But in 9th stage realm practitioners, might was not something which he could go against. He didn't even have the possibility to struggle and escape, as his entire body was suppressed by Cui Yuanshan's aura, rendering him totally immovable, as he could only watch with his eyes open to wait for himself to become crippled. Just as everything thought the same thought, Li Lingchuan would be injured and brought away by Cui Yuanshan. Suddenly, Cui Yuanshan gave off a sound. Immediately following that, a burst of profound energy flew out from the side as it collided ferociously with Cui Yuanshan's profound energy. A boom sound reverberated and shooting sparks was seen in mid-sky. Cui Yuanshan couldn't help but gave a dull moan as he felt that that gust of profound energy was not only rich, it was also abnormally solid. It could instantly crush his own profound energy as his feet was pushed back by half a step before he managed to steady himself with his breathing slightly unstable. Sect Master Murong, what's the meaning in this? Haven't you agreed not to dabble in this matter? Don't tell me you're regretting it? Cui Yuanshan hollered out exasperatedly as he gave Murong a furious stare. However, when the two of them exchanged glances, he then discovered that Murong's expression was even more astonished than his. What's going on? Cui Yuanshan frowned. Murong turned his indeterminate, bewildered gaze onto Li Moying. Not only Murong, everyone below the stage had seen it clearly. The person who obstructed Cui Yuanshan was not Murong, but Li Moying. Cui Yuanshan followed his gaze as he looked towards Li Moying. What's the meaning? Don't tell me the person who struck earlier isn't Moying. Cui Yuanshan's eyes turned wild like full moons as he deeply felt that Murong was playing tricks on him. After all, when he struck earlier, although he had used only 20 to 30% of his profound energy, but that was still a 9th-stage realm practitioner strike. 9th-stage realm practitioners who advanced would all enter a stage of shedding their mortal bones. As compared to practitioners who were under 9th-stage realm, there was a huge difference in their abilities. Even if it was an 8th-stage realm peak practitioner, that person would not be able to take on 20% of his profound energy. Moreover speaking, in order for him to cripple Li Lingchuan in one move, he used a heaven-grade profound skill. Who exactly was Li Moying? He has South Sky regions, or perhaps Soaring Heavens Continent's #1 genius, but he was merely a junior. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the 7th-stage realm. He was invincible among the younger generation, but in front of a 9th-stage realm practitioner, he could barely take on a strike. How could Li Moying possibly block a move from Cui Yuanshan? Cui Yuanshan wanted to laugh loudly to express his disdainful feelings, but when he turned his gaze towards the public square, he discovered that everyone's face was filled with astonishment. You can also listen on. Cui Yuanshan was stunned. From the looks of it, could it be that Murong was not deliberately mystifying, but he was telling the truth? Before he could even react, Li Moying's icy cold gaze swept past him as he opened his mouth indifferently. Sect Master Cui, you cannot take him away. Cui Yuanshan's face flashed past a furious look. He was an established practitioner for quite a number of years, and he had never been commanded in such a way by a junior. Unfortunately, Li Moying did it, and furthermore, in such a just and forceful way. Cui Yuanshan replied, Young Sect Master Li, please be clear of who you are speaking to. Li Lingchuan caused harm to my Green Cloud sect's eldest disciple, and this is of utmost concern, hence this sect master has the authority to take him away. Furthermore, Lung family have been investigating Lung Yifeng's cause of death, so this sect master must definitely hand this person over to them. Cui Yuanshan forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart as he made an exception to explain a little more. The main thing was because he didn't bring along any 9th-stage realm elders and was there alone on Celestial Light Sect's turf, so he didn't want to create any trouble. When Li Moying heard that, there was still no expression on his face as he continued speaking. Li Lingchuan plotted against me and my fiancé in Cloudy Chilan Mystic region, and this debt cannot be forgotten. He can only be dealt with by me. Sect Master Cui, please return him. Cui Yuanshan was shoved back by a similar reason as his face was so stuffed that it turned red. From what he saw, the explanation that he gave earlier was already lowering his own status, giving this young junior enough face, so Li Moying should just be tactful and leave the stage, respectfully allowing him to take the person away. Whoever knew that Li Moying was actually unmoved, and he even obstructed right in front of him. He couldn't help but flew into a rage. Li Moying, who do you think you're talking to? Move aside for this sect master. Otherwise, I'll capture both of you and send you over to the Lung family. Don't forget, Lung Yifeng's death is connected to you as well. Cui Yuanshan berated him while unhesitatingly releasing his profound energy from within. A ninth-stage realm top exponent suppression enveloped the entire public square, and many practitioners present weren't able to take it as they started shuffling backwards. But Li Moying, who was facing Cui Yuanshan, stood high and mighty as he was motionless, as though Cui Yuanshan's profound energy suppression had no effect on him at all. Cui Yuanshan had never met with such a thing, and on seeing Li Moying behaving in an opposite reaction as what he had expected, he immediately threw up blood and retreated a little. Feeling that he had lost face further, he continued to unleash his profound energy. This time round, even a top exponent like Murong just started feeling uncomfortable. Li Lingchuan, who knelt on the ground, was throwing up blood as he bent over and curled up. Even so, Li Moying still didn't show any signs of discomfort. On the contrary, his lips curled upwards slightly, and signs of ridicule started appearing on his face. This expression completely infuriated Cui Yuanshan. "You little fellow, did you really think that you have outstanding innate talent and you can go up against an established senior? You're simply too conceited. If you don't move aside, then this sect master will not continue being polite." He was just about to give his fullest and seriously deal out his move to show Li Moying some colors. But at this moment, Murong stood in the middle to stop him as he cried out, "Sect Master Cui, misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. Don't be rash." Moying, he almost died under his own junior brother's hand and is still feeling upset over it, which is inevitable, hence he's acting a little out of control, not knowing what's more important. He's young and still ignorant, so I'll speak to him, then he'd start to get over it. "Sect Master Cui, please don't hold it against a junior. You can also listen on." Murong stood by the side as he looked at Li Moying, winking at him. "Moying, aren't you coming over to apologize to Sect Master Cui?" Murong now understood that Li Lingchuan could not be saved, but there wasn't much influence if he gave up on this hopeless second disciple. Now the greatest news was Li Moying had came back to life. As long as Li Moying was around, Celestial Light Sect's future would be boundless, so even if 1,000 Li Lingchuans died, there wasn't any influence at all. Hence, when Cui Yuanshan dabbled in the situation based on his reason to capture Li Lingchuan to hand over to Lung family, he didn't object too violently. But now that Li Moying was going up against Cui Yuanshan, things were not good. If Cui Yuanshan exploded and heavily injured Li Moying, then that would be Celestial Light Sect's irrevocable damage. That was why Murong hurriedly jumped out to ease the situation. Cui Yuanshan saw Murong jumping out and thinking that he had not brought any men along. Hence he could only let things go. He placed his hands behind his back and gave a cold humph as he said, "All right, since Sect Master Murong put it in this way, how could this Sect Master haggle with a junior? As long as young Sect Masterly apologizes sincerely, then I can let this matter rest." When Murong heard that, he winked even harder at Li Moying, so much that his eyeballs were about to drop out. Alas, Li Moying totally ignored him as the ridicule beneath his eyes was even stronger. "This is not a misunderstanding. This seed has already made it clearly, Li Lingchuan. Must I unto my hands?" Cui Yuanshan simply did not believe what he had heard. Under his coercive suppression, Li Moying actually remained so resolute, without any sense of wanting to step back. Must you go against this sect master?" Cui Yuanshan's face turned green. The profound energy in his body had started to gather, and his aura kept on increasing as the air started to be charged with an intense wind, profound energy. If it was an ordinary 7th stage realm practitioner, he would have been lying limp on the ground. No matter how much determination he had, there was no way that he could control his own actions under such a powerful suppression. But Li Moying merely replied indifferently, "Talking so much rubbish, either you scram or strike." The public square turned completely silent. No one had expected that Li Moying actually dared to provoke the long-established 9th stage realm practitioner, Chui Yuanshan, in such a way. Did he really want to die? Or had he gone insane? No matter how excellent his innate talent was, there was no possibility of him being able to block a move from Chui Yuanshan. Now he had even incited Chui Yuanshan to make a move. Was he in a hurry to reincarnate? Chui Yuanshan stared intently at Li Moying's eyes. Good. You're very good. This sect master shall let you experience what is known as a genuine 9th stage realm practitioner. You must know what kind of price you must pay for provoking the strong. Murong's expression changed abruptly as he cried out sharply, "Li Moying, what nonsense are you sprouting? Quickly shut your mouth." But saying anything now was just too late. Right after Chui Yuanshan said 3 good words, the profound energy within his body started pouring out in torrents as it gathered into a wind blade, striking towards Li Moying's head. He had been completely angered, and no matter what, he was a sect master. To be provoked by a junior in such a way, his face had been completely lost. You can also listen on. If he didn't make Li Moying pay a painful price, then where would his face be placed? Towards wind, attributed practitioners. Windblade was an extremely ordinary profound skill, but under the drive of a 9th stage realm's torrential profound energy, the air gathered in midair into blade images, but was extraordinarily strong, as though it could tear the entire heaven and earth apart. Wind-attributed energy revolved around the sharp blade, bearing a devastating stance in everyone's heart. Wind-attributed practitioner speed were extremely swift, and it only took a flash before it was just inches away from Li Moying. Heavens! Li Moying is a goner. Too terrifying. So this is a 9th stage realm practitioner's potential. He could simply call upon the wind and summon rain, totally not something that ordinary people like us could imagine. Finished, Li Moying Amidst the cries, many of them were so afraid that they covered their eyes, especially for those young ladies who secretly admired Li Moying. They didn't dare to see him being cut in half by the wind blade. Murong hurriedly struck out in an attempt to save him. But his potential was originally much weaker than Chui Yuanshan, and adding on to the speed which a wind-attributed practitioner had, not to mention that Chui Yuanshan had suddenly struck. Under various elements, Murong's profound energy missed the wind blade, and he could only watch with his eyes open at the blade which had sliced open the space as it landed onto the top of Li Moying's head. He drew in a breath of cold air. However, the image which was in his mind did not appear. Li Moying was facing an abruptly descended wind blade, but he totally made no signs of attempting to evade it. In fact, he didn't even bother to put out a defensive stance. It was until the wind blade was right on top of his head when he moved slightly as he raised his hand up. A blue-purplish streak of lightning violently flashed, instantly attracting thunder. A loud boom sound reverberated, and the explosive sound rang above Celestial Light Sect as a bolt of lightning split opened heaven and earth, forming a line with the thunder light in Li Moying's palm. This bolt of lightning was simply too bright, and many practitioners of weaker cultivation were blinded the moment that lightning lit up as their eyes started tearing, totally unable to see anything. Whereas for practitioners with higher cultivations, they could only barely see that bolt of lightning which suddenly released a powerful amount of energy, clashing fiercely against Chui Yuanshan's windblade. An intense explosion sounded. Raging wind and electric currents started to land on the public square, causing torrents of miserable shrieks. After a moment later, the explosive repercussions then slowly subsides as those practitioners who had gone dizzy from the effect could barely pick themselves up, raising their heads to look at the situation on the stage. Celestial Light Sect's VIP seats had been blown away. Amid the mayhem, Li Moying and Cui Yuanshan were at a distance of 10 meters away from each other. Cui Yuanshan's condition was far from good. His face was pale, and his entire face was filled with dust and ash, and the protection armor which he wore was blasted into shreds with multiple wounds on his body as it kept on seeping out blood. His eyes were wide open as he displayed an expression of disbelief as he used his finger and pointed towards Li Moying's direction. As he did that, his entire body started trembling uncontrollably. You? How is it possible? How is this possible? Li Moying shot a glance at him coldly. Why is it not possible? Cui Yuanshan seemed as though he had suffered a huge blow as he started to talk incoherently. How could you possibly? I am in ninth stage realm. How could you possibly block it? Impossible. Li Moying's icy cold voice was heard. Haven't you seen it for yourself? This is, of course, because my cultivation is also in the ninth stage realm. You can also listen on. Ninth stage realm? What is young Sect Masterly talking about? Have I heard wrongly? Pinch me quickly. Hearing what Li Moying said, those practitioners who had finally started to quieten down all started to shriek as all of them felt that they had developed hallucination. However, when they turned their gazes towards Li Moying, all of their questions were all stuffed back at their faces. Li Moying stood there firmly as his gaze was cold and penetrating with his tall statue, standing upright like a mountain, as it was impenetrable. His aura kept on increasing as his profound energy fluctuation, which was emitted, started to become stronger and stronger. Overbearing, profound energy suppression enveloped the entire public square, even pushing Cui Yuanshan's unleashed profound energy back, totally suppressing him until it couldn't be felt. This kind of powerful and pure, profound energy clearly answered the question, which was, Li Moying had genuinely crossed into the line of the ninth stage realm. Cui Yuanshan's pupils slightly contracted as his gaze, which was fixed on Li Moying, was as though he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Ninth stage realm? It really is the ninth stage realm? Heavens! Young Sect Master Li had actually advanced into the ninth stage realm. Isn't this a little too ridiculous? If I hadn't recalled wrongly, he's only 21 years old this year. A 21-year-old ninth stage realm. Terrifying? Too terrifying? The #1 top expert, Mu Qinging, in Soaring Heavens Continent, then was over 30 years old when he advanced in a ninth stage realm. And that was Soaring Heavens Continent's fastest record of advancing into ninth stage realm. Looks like this record is broken by young Sect Masterly. It's far more than broken. It has totally been shrunk by a huge chunk. How on earth did he do it? Public Square exploded into a bustle as everyone used a mixed gaze of shock, fear, and adoration as they looked at Li Moying. Since the moment he stepped in a ninth stage realm, he was no longer the so-called genius, but a genuine, peerless top exponent. All the people present were no longer in a possibility of being put on the same level to be compared. Not only the disciples from other sects, even everyone in Celestial Light Sect were dazed beyond words. Eldest senior brother is too powerful. This simply is too ridiculous. I thought that I had already gained enough understanding on eldest senior brother's powerfulness, but it's only until now that I realize that all I've seen were just the tip of the iceberg. Is he still a human? Even Morongdo was completely dazed. As Li Moying's master, he should be clearest towards his own disciples' innate talent, but now he realized that this Li Moying right in front of him was someone whom he totally didn't recognize. He had merely just entered the cloudy Chilan Mystic region once, and only for slightly over 2 months, but he had actually broken through 2 large realms consecutively. This was not using just a simple word, genius, to describe him. Under everyone's dumbstruck look, Li Moying inclined his head to the side as he told Mo.E, "Go get Li Lingchuan. We should get going." Mo.E hurriedly responded as he and Mo.Air went up to grab hold of Li Lingchuan. Moe and Moer were merely at 6th-stage realm cultivation and were slightly weaker than Li Lingchuan. Originally, if they went up to capture him, Li Lingchuan would absolutely not wait to be captured. But earlier, after witnessing Li Moying's astonishing ability, Li Lingchuan was so shocked that he laid limp on the ground as a smelly stench of urine flowed out from his pants, stinking the entire place. Facing the icy cold, expressionless shadow guards, he didn't dare to resist against them. You can also listen on. Moe and Moer didn't use much effort as they used the immortal binding rope to tie him up. But just as they were about to drag him away, Cui Yuanshan suddenly regained his senses. He shot upwards like an arrow and cried out sharply towards the both of them. "Move aside! Who allowed you to snatch this person away from this sect master?" Moe and Moer were intimidated by a 9th-stage realm practitioner's profound energy, and instantly the blood in their chests started churning, causing them to almost throw up blood, but they didn't even take a step back. Cui Yuanshan was exasperated and was about to strike out at them to teach them a lesson, but Li Moying waved his sleeve at a suitable timing as a burst of profound energy shot across silently to dispel Cui Yuanshan's intentional suppression. Sect Master Cui, the outcome is already clear, and if you continue to tangle in this way, does that mean that you don't even want your face anymore? Li Moying's cold voice was heard at a speed which was not too fast nor too slow. But every single word which he said was thought to infuriate anyone to death alive. Cui Yuanshan's face was flushed as he shouted out loudly, "W, what outcome is already clear? Stop plastering gold onto your face. Earlier, it was because this sect master had underestimated you, thinking that you've just in the 7th-stage realm, hence, I didn't put in any actual power. Did you think that you could win this sect master? In actual fact, if it was just based on that move earlier, the winner and loser was already extremely obvious. Both parties had a face-to-face profound energy clash, and in the end, Cui Yuanshan was thrown 10 over feet away, even sustaining a moderate internal injury, whereas Li Moying was totally unharmed as he still had surplus energy. Anyone with eyes knew just who had a stronger ability. However, Cui Yuanshan could not accept this reality, or rather, any established 9th-stage realm practitioner who thought themselves as extraordinary were all unable to accept that they were actually defeated so easily by a 20-over-year-old junior in just one move. This was his lifetime's goal in cultivation, which he was pursuing after, and his arrogance and pride as an established top exponent was completely shattered. So Cui Yuanshan kept on hypnotizing himself that Li Moying was able to defeat himself was all because he had underestimated him. That move earlier used at most 60% of his profound energy, and he had not even used any profound skill, so it did not represent his genuine strength. Hence he was defeated was just a coincidence. But Cui Yuanshan had not thought that as an established old-timer top exponent. Yet all he was thinking of was to use his full strength and resorted to all methods to fight with Li Moying before he could even obtain a sliver of possible victory. This itself had already shown clearly the difference between both parties' ability. Li Moying heard Cui Yuanshan boasting shamelessly as his lips curled up slightly and sneered, "Since you're in a hurry to die, then why not let this seat take a look at how much ability do you really have?" When he said this, everyone was all disheveled in the wind. Li Moying's sentence in that tone, no matter what, it should be a senior saying such words to a junior, right? Why did it feel as though the situation was reversed? He, in Cui Yuanshan's position, seemed to have turned topsy-turvy. The bystanders who heard that were astonished, whereas Cui Yuanshan was so angry that his 7 orifices were fuming with smoke. "You, Li Moying, you're simply seeking death." Before his last word left his mouth, Cui Yuanshan's face suddenly turned pale as his mouth opened wide in shock. Li Moying's feet moved and took a step forward. Just a small step, and his surrounding aura had once again ascended as it instantly expanded rapidly by 1 fold. Thunder attributed energy in the surrounding 10 miles were all wildly gushing towards him as the air was filled with electric currents, giving off crackling noises. You can also listen on. Chui Yuanshan's eyes widened. At this moment, right in front of him, he absolutely wasn't some talented junior who had just stepped into the ninth stage realm's door. On the contrary, the peerless strong exponent in front of him had easily controlled the electric current's power and his surroundings heaven and amp, earth energy, which was extremely complex and hard to handle, but he made it seem so easy and simply done as he wished. This was absolutely something which an established strong exponent who had genuinely combat experience could achieve. Who on earth are you? Chui Yuanshan's question was raised, but before he could finish asking, Li Moing's brows rose, and he moved in instants. Overbearing thunder attributed profound energy gathered into bursts of thin electric currents, and following a lift of his finger, it struck towards Chui Yuanshan's chest. This bolt of lightning was extremely minute, and, as compared to the last time the both of them crossed hands, that terrifying lightning which tore the sky apart became an obvious comparison. However, Chui Yuanshan sensed that this bolt of non-exceptional lightning contained even more powerful energy, which was even more than that lightning which blinded their eyes. This bolt of lightning came extremely quickly. Even if Chui Yuanshan was a wind-attributed practitioner, in terms of his speed, he was still too late. It took merely a thought, and the lightning had already reached him, and Chui Yuanshan exhausted everything he could to take precaution as he expedited all the profound energy he had to protect his physical body. However, it was all in vain. A soft pfff was heard. Li Moing's electric currents easily tore apart Chui Yuanshan's protection profound chi, directly entering his body. Chui Yuanshan cried out miserably as his entire body was sent flying out towards the public square's direction. He flew for a couple of 100 meters before crashing heavily into the crowd, causing a bustle of chaos. By the time Green Cloud's sex disciples hastily passed through the crowd to render aid, they only saw a charred body on the ground. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still twitching occasionally, they really thought that he had already become a charred corpse. Whereas on Li Moing's face, he still bore the biting cold expression, without even a crease in his brow. It was as though defeating Chui Yuanshan, who was considered a rather strong practitioner who was in the ninth stage realm, with one move wasn't something extraordinary and couldn't even stir any emotions within his heart. He couldn't even be bothered to say a word more as he raised his hand and waved. Moe and Mo Air, who were behind him, immediately reciprocated as they went up to drag Li Lingchuan. This time round, no one else dared to jump out to object. Li Lingchuan was already foaming at his mouth as he laid limp on the ground, totally unconscious, just short of being scared to death alive. Murongda, on the other hand, had his eyes open wide as he stared fixedly on Li Moing. No one was clearer than Murongda on just how strong was Chui Yuanshan's ability. In the recent years, he and Chui Yuanshan had been pairing against each other, and out of so many times, Murongda had never gained victory at all. But such a powerful top exponent wasn't even able to take a strike from his disciple. This really was reality? After Mo trussed Li Lingchuan up, he returned back to standing behind Li Moing. Li Moing frowned as he said impatiently, Murong Fei as well. Bring them away together. Mo shuddered as he hurriedly headed up to capture her. When Murong Fei heard that, she immediately shrieked, Eldest senior brother, Mayor, mercy. Don't catch me, don't kill me. I really had not thought about harming you at all. It's Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng. They forced me. I know my mistake. I'm begging you to take account of my father and spare me, please. You can also listen on that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.